The following program deals with a controversial
subject.
The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation.
The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
the top talents in the comic book business are here to tell everything they know.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Tuesday night, episode 32 of the Industry of Comics show with my two compadres, Dennis Barger of Wonder World Comics, Jesse Criscione of Jesse James Comics. And we're hearing that Jesse's getting ready to go through the first hurricane of the season. Is that what they're calling this?
Yeah, first hurricane this season. A little bit late, but there's a lot of you. It's funny. You actually learn all your compadres that live in Florida because everybody's talking about it. It's like, oh, I didn't know that person. Oh, that person's on the street. Oh, that person's in that city. So just got to hunker down. We bought all our drinks and food and built our extra shelter and all that just in case. Got all the cats and dogs ready to go. So yeah, it is a thing, and it's just part of living in the great state of Florida.
Yeah, amen.
Let me tell you a funny convention hurricane story then, Jesse. So it's 2000, right when I started being a booking agent. Fort Lauderdale, I think it's Hollywood. It was right next to Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, that little area.
Yeah.
And we're doing a sci-fi convention. This was actually one of the Joe Moats, and that's a different story for a different time. But the weekend we were there was Star Wars, Aliens, a bunch of stuff. So in the first day we get in, 2 days before the convention, because we're just going to relax, all of a sudden news is like, oh, it's a tropical storm coming. There's a tropical storm coming. And it was coming from the west side of the state. So it was going to make landfall on the west side and come across the small end. And we're like just watching it. And it's like, okay, it's a tropical storm 1. It's a tropical storm 2. It's a tropical storm 3. And we're just sitting at the bar going, should we worry about this? Bartender's like, nah, don't worry about it. It's only tropical storm level 3. By the time it makes landfall, it'll break up. And we're like, okay, cool. Convention comes. There was a fun little occurrence where all the guys are wearing the stormtrooper armor, and the same night they're doing the changing of the guard at the local Marine base. So everybody was in those Marine full dress blues, and all the stormtroopers were in their stormtrooper costumes. All the Marines wanted to be stormtroopers, and all the stormtroopers wanted to be Marines. Hilarious time. Convention is dead because it's literally everybody is preparing for a hurricane. But we're like, hey, we're not supposed to be worried about this, right? Nah. It's all going to. It gets to tropical storm level 4, and they start talking hurricane. So as a non-Floridian, I'm like, we should be worried about this, right? Nah. Don't worry about it. So Sunday comes and goes. Convention's a complete wash. I mean, we did $1,000. It was worthless. But we're going to drive across Alligator Alley to go over to the west side of the state. And so Sunday night, we're like, yeah, we're going to leave first thing Monday morning and go over across Alligator Alley. And the same bartender is like, don't worry. It's like, during a tropical storm level 4, are you crazy? And we're like, wait a second, we're in the hotel and it's not a worry, but driving? He goes, yeah, you don't want to drive in this. Yeah. The second it hits landfall Sunday night, it disrupts back down to a level 1. Like by morning, and it's perfect. It was like just perfect, gorgeous. The calm after the storm. But yeah, so that was my one hurricane experience, and yeah.
Not bad. It could have been worse. Baltimore Comic-Con happened this last weekend. We're going to get some inside info on Baltimore Comic-Con. But, a few weeks ago, I believe, we kind of was it last week? I believe
2 weeks.
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
And a half ago. Yeah.
Yeah. We talked on the show about the late and great John Cassaday and losing another great creator in comics. And the one person that I really wanted to reach out to that knew him probably the best out of any person in the industry is a big friend of the show and somebody that we respect a lot. And so I wanted to bring him on tonight to talk about him. Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Barrucci from Dynamite Comics. Nick, how you doing, brother?
Hey, man. How you doing, Brian? Hey, Dennis. Jesse, what's going on, man?
Yeah.
I'm hungry for Cheez-Its right now.
I know.
Subliminal advertising.
Yeah.
I know.
By the way, I think there's a little bit of false advertising Stan Lee says all the luminaries, but then you bring me in. It throws the whole thing off. I guess you needed somebody to bring down your Q rating.
I love you guys that are
what's
so
funny
humble.
is I kind of feel like I'm on the Batman set, right? Because he's kind of crooked with his wall. So I'm like, is he like, what is he doing with his wall there?
Dutch angle master right over there.
It's just my computer.
Yeah. Okay.
My desk is I'm one of those my desk is chaos, but I know exactly where everything is.
Right.
So right now, this is on top of a art folder that's kind of crooked, which is why it's like that. So,
Yeah.
hey, Igor, how are you, man?
I'm with you, Nick. I'm the same way when it comes to my desk, and I'm looking at it now. And I'm like, I got to clean this guy up sometime soon. But, you didn't get a chance to go to Baltimore this week. You had a lot going on, and that being the loss of one of your best friends in the world, in John Cassaday. And I was going to see if you could talk a little bit about that. How did you and John meet?
It's kind of a funny story, and it's Dennis was telling a little bit about his story about meeting John and finding out who he is. So I'm at San Diego Comic-Con, and used to be back in the day. I mean, Brian, you're far younger than me, and Dennis, I don't know when you started going to San Diego, but I'm pretty sure Jesse started
82.
around when I did, when you would go to San Diego and there were 2 hotels and the convention was in 1 or 2 halls. And the bar everybody went to was the Hyatt, the top of the Hyatt. But before that, everybody went to Dick's Last Resort. So I'm at Dick's Last Resort with Scott Dunbier. And there's one part of this that I'm always hazy about. And I think I miswrote it. But, I was messed up when I wrote it because I was grief.
Yeah.
But so I'm sitting there with Scott Dunbier. And I'll explain where my confusion is, and I'll say this. I'm sitting there with Scott Dunbier. All of a sudden, Scott Dunbier walks in. It says, "Hey, Nikki." Oh, he screams out, John, we're over here. So I'm sitting down, we're grabbing a bite, having a drink with Scott, chilling. It's at the end of the show. And Scott says, "Hey, Nikki, this is John Cassaday. John's doing this upcoming series, Planetary, for us. It's going to be really great. John, this is Nick Barrucci, one of my best friends." And I knew John's work from Union Jack and X-Men Alpha Flight, before. Yeah, I mean, I think that I can't even remember if that was before or after Desperados. Probably after.
It was after Desperados. Desperados was like his first stuff.
Yeah, his first major stuff, because
Yeah.
he did stuff for Boneyard Press and other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm a fan of your stuff." He's like, Planetary is great. For some reason, I sometimes think that I met him after Planetary, but it was definitely before. Like I said, you get grief stricken and you're not thinking about what you're writing. But I'm like, "Oh yeah, man, fan of your work. How'd you like to come to QVC UK with me?" And it's like those are the words out of my mouth. Like, "Fan of your work. How'd you like to come to QVC UK with me?" And and he said yes. And Planetary came out. We flew to the UK, and he signed Planetaries, and we did a show, and then we met with the great Mike Lake. I don't know if you guys know who Mike Lake is, but he was one of the founding people of comics in the UK. He co-owned with Nick Landau and Mike Pullman, I think, Titan Distribution. And then they sold to Diamond Comic Distributors. So he was one of the forefathers of the UK comic publishing. And we went to the UCAC comic convention, and it was a little bit of a crazy trip. It was a lot of fun. And what I like to say is we started a bromance that lasted 25 years, At one, we went to go see Steve Winwood in Atlantic City, and we ate at Carmine's restaurant, and we got a porterhouse steak and 2 sides, and we killed it. And like the next week, I'm with Pam, and we're eating, and I'm like, oh yeah. She's like, how you ate almost half of it. I was like, well, yeah. I mean, last week I ate the whole thing with John. She's like, wait, what do you mean you ate the whole thing with John? I said, well, we ordered one of these. I had half, he had half. She's like, oh my God, you had a mandate. I was like, you're right. I did have a mandate. And it's just, he was one of my best friends. I mean, some people might think, oh, one of your best friends in comics. No, one of my best friends, period.
Right.
Like if shit was going down bad and I needed help, I could always talk to him if I needed something. John was never really a phone person. He was more of a texting person. And so, but if I really needed something and he could feel it, I would get a call or 2 back. I think I've spoken to him on the phone like 8 times in the 25 years we knew each other. And the sad part, to a degree for me, is that I texted him a year ago, May. We have a lot of similar loves, which is why the Lone Ranger came together. But like we both love pulp. We both love, like, do you guys ever, you're too young for this probably, Brian, but you guys ever see the Ken Wall TV series, Wise Guy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's my number 1 favorite TV show of all time.
Dennis Farina, Andrew Dice Clay.
Oh, you're thinking Crime Story. You're thinking
Crime Story.
Yeah,
Which one was
yeah.
Wise Guy then?
Yep.
Wise Guy was Ken Wall. It had Ray Sharp. Yeah, it had.
I never got into that one.
Yep.
Yeah, it's my number 1 favorite TV series. So we've got a lot of similarities that we love, and so like one thing, besides being really pissed at him for, he's younger than me, so I'm really upset that he died before me. That shouldn't have happened. I've got a big piece of disappointment because a year ago, May, I was working on a project that's taking forever to come together, but it's going to be worth it. That he was really excited about, that he was going to be a part of, not just the comic, but the media as well. And now he's not going to be a part of it. So every time I look at this, I'm going to think, fuck, I can't believe he's not a part of this.
I mean, Nikki, one of the beautiful things about you and the projects that you do, you cultivate these friendships, and then because of your unique system of variance and just kind of saturation, you have work for all your friends. Like, I think of that Red Sonja launch, and I mean, you had a half dozen, if not a dozen, cover one artists that are all just bangers in the industry. Just bangers.
No, we were really lucky. We were really lucky.
And then every rollout you do, down to, like, I remember I was talking to you before the show, and the first time I met John after realizing I'm a comic store owner at this point was Baltimore, where you rolled out Lone Ranger. But I mean, even that had multiple giant names on it.
That was actually, I mean, John was the name. That was actually the first comic. Oh God, you'll laugh. That was the first comic we did with 1 cover, and everybody under-ordered it. And because they didn't know how to order it, since it only had a Cassaday cover, and all it had was the sheriff badge.
Yep, I remember that.
Blood on it. I really want to say one thing about John that needs to be said, in my opinion. John was a really good-looking guy, like not even handsome, like beautiful, like he was just that guy.
Him and Mike Turner, man.
Yeah. the thing that I'll say about John is he was more beautiful on the inside than he was on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he met you once and he remembered your name, because obviously a lot of people, I get the same problem sometimes. People know me. I don't remember them necessarily, because at a convention, I might talk to 40 people that I know and then be introduced to 140 more that I don't. And people remember me more than I might remember them. And that's the case with John. But John would be so generous with his time, and they say luck is being prepared when opportunity knocks. John was just nice to everybody, so good things always happened to him because he was nice. I remember we went to this really, really expensive, fancy Japanese restaurant in New York once, and I'm like, this is pre-Dynamite. We're talking like 2001, and business is kind of bad. The market is bad, and we're like at this restaurant, and the cheapest decent dish was like $75.
Wow.
And
in 2001 money.
In 2001, and I'm like, how the heck am I going to pay for this? And John's like, don't worry about it. I was like, John, you're the artist. You shouldn't pay. Come on, you sign books for me. I pay you. He's like, Nick, I'm not going to pay, but neither are you. Next thing you know, the chef comes out, not the sous chef, the chef comes out, talks to John, thanks him for everything. He got introduced to this chef like a month before that, and he got introduced by a friend who knew him, and is like, oh, you like Batman? My friend can draw a really good Batman. And he drew a Batman for him, and then he found out when he gave it to his son was like, oh my God, John Cassaday? Like the son knew. So the chef was like, anytime you come in my restaurant, meals on me.
Amazing.
And it's like, it just somebody saying, like his son likes Batman. And he was just like, yeah, sure. Let me do this for you. Not a problem. I mean, he's a guy that cared about everything. He cared more about the craft than anything else. Like the reason why he's one of the best cover artists of all time, if not the best cover artist of all time, is because he thinks about everything. He's not looking for the money shot. Like he could have made that Lone Ranger #1 cover something powerful, like Dan Reed being shot, the Rangers, whatever. And he was like, we're gonna start with the badge in the ground with blood on it, and the last issue is gonna have the silver bullet. That's like, he thought of it 4 years in advance. He's like, this is the way I'm starting it. This is the way I'm ending it. I mean, I will say probably my greatest accomplishment when it came to John, I think I might have told you guys part of the Lone Ranger story last time. My greatest accomplishment when it came to John was giving him the Lone Ranger. So we went to go get the Lone Ranger twice and turned it down both times, because the first time they were like, all right, here's what we're doing with the Lone Ranger. We want to modernize him a little bit. I'm like, wait, you're taking him out of the West? No. He's going to stay in the West. It's still in the 1800s. Don't worry about that. I'm like, oh, okay. So think Unforgiven. So like, I'm like, okay, yeah, Unforgiven. Great effing movie, right?
Hell yeah.
So he's like, just like when Clint Eastwood cornered the one guy and was killing him in the ravine, the Rangers chased the Cavendish's gang into the ravine, and they're picking them off one at a time, and they don't know why Cavendish's gang doesn't give up. And the sun goes down. Oh shit. The moon comes up. I'm like, oh no. And Cavendish's gang turns into werewolves. They attack the Rangers. They turn the Rangers into werewolves or kill them. But only Dan Reed survives, and that's why he needs silver bullets. I'm like, oh no. I was like, sorry.
Wait, who was this?
This was the rights holders, the people who owned the Lone
Okay.
Ranger.
So
Because they
King
were doing
Syndicate
that
or
was the
whatever?
movie. That was the movie that was happening.
Oh
So
my God.
I said, listen, you're doing Buffy in the West. Sorry, I'm the wrong person.
Right.
Then we went after it because I grew up on the Lone Ranger too.
That sounds like John Peters' pitch right there.
No, there's no giant spider, so it wasn't John Peters.
Yeah.
You know, he got that giant spider out of Superman and put it in the Wild Wild West.
Oh, well, West, yeah.
So then so we go after it one more time. I'm like, let's give it another shot. And we go there and they're like, okay, we're with another studio now, so they have a different take. We're not doing the werewolf thing. I'm like, oh, thank God. But look, what we're thinking is, what if we make the Lone Ranger and Tonto women and we have something bad happen to them? I'm like, whoa, what? You're taking this into a direction I don't want to be involved. You know, I'm like, I'm done. So then Planetary 22 comes out, The Torture of William Leather. And I read it and I'm like, okay, this is the Lone Ranger on steroids. I don't know if you guys read it, but it's basically Cavendish's gang. They kill the Rangers for the silver. So, yeah, there you go. So William Leather survives. He melts down the silver. He tips it in poison so that if he shoots somebody, even if he doesn't kill them, the poison kills them. And he rides saying, if they want the silver, I'm going to give them the silver.
Wow.
And I call up John and I'm like, John, you got to call me back. I cannot email this to you. I cannot text this to you. Actually, he may not even have had a phone then. There's a funny story about why he finally got a cell phone. So I might have called him at his house and said, you got to call me back. I'm not going to email you. And I'm like, dude, I'm going after the Lone Ranger for the third time. I'm going to show them Planetary 22, if you're okay with it. I want to show them what the Lone Ranger can be. Yeah, see, that's the last cover.
Classic.
I want to show them what the Lone Ranger should be. And the good thing is they weren't in the middle of any movie deals. They weren't in the middle of any media rights. All the rights had reverted. So there was no like, oh, we got to do what the movie wants. And he was, and they were like, sure. And the funny thing is, you know, and look, this is where I tell you guys, like, John's very lucky, which shined off on us a little bit. So John's on board. I fly up to Toronto to talk to Warren Ellis. I'm like, Warren, you wrote this issue of Planetary. If you want to write it, the book's yours. He's like, Nick, some of these characters I'm writing for John. They're great characters, but they're not characters that I want to do an ongoing series of. It's just not for me. And so Warren respectfully begs off. And, you know, I fly back and we have our weekly editorial meeting and I talk to Joe and Juan. And Joe's like, you know, and we're going through like this writer will be great. This writer will be great. I don't want to say names because I don't want to say who we, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But all of a sudden, Joe's like, why don't we ask Brett Matthews? And I'm thinking to myself, who's Brett Matthews? And, you know, Joe's like, he's like, oh, he works on Firefly on the TV series with Joss Whedon. He's like, come on, Wagons in the Sky, Wagons in the West.
Mm-hmm.
He's perfect. So I'm like, I'm up for it. Let me email John. I emailed John like, hey, what do you think about Brett Matthews? I get an email back saying, I love the idea. Matter of fact, you won't believe this. I'm flying out to LA tomorrow. I'm staying over Brett's house for a week. So I'll talk to him there.
Wow.
I
Right.
mean,
But
like,
did you know the connection between Joss and John at that time?
no, this was
no for the audience. John.
No. I knew the connection. I'm sorry. I'm saying no. I knew the connection. I just didn't know that John knew anybody else.
Okay.
Like I think he knew. I knew he knew the actors.
Yeah.
But I didn't know he knew the writers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that worked out really well. And it was a dream project for him. I mean, he did the covers, he got involved with the story, he helped pick the artist, the colorist, the letterer. There was no detail that was too small for him, and he just wanted it to be the best it could be. And he he like I said, I mean, I'm going to repeat myself, as good looking, hands, you can say handsome, you can say beautiful,
Charismatic.
He was better on the inside than he was on the out. I mean, like, he was the guy that you could chill. I never saw him say anything negative about anybody. He never treated anybody poorly. I've He's the type of person that if I was a kid, I would aspire to. I mean, and again, like, Lone Ranger sold X. He could have been doing more Batman covers and made more money getting paid by DC, or do Spider-Man covers and get more money from Marvel, and B, sell the original art for more. Albert Moy, his art dealer, used to kid around and say, "Can you tell John to stop doing these Sherlock Holmes covers and these Green Hornet covers? I can't sell them as easily as I can as Marvel and DC art." I was like, "Albert, I'm not saying that." I was like, I mean, he was mostly kidding. I don't want to say he was 100% kidding, but he was mostly kidding. And
Nick, one of the things that I always talk about whenever it comes to like your legacy, or how people perceive you, is I always want to be that person that when somebody talks about me and I'm not around to a group of people, that the group of people will say things like you said. And I have never heard anybody talk about John that knew John or met John that didn't speak like you just spoke about him, which is pretty amazing to have that, in your legacy, and how people, talk about you when you're not around. This is way, within the last, 10 years, I've heard people talk about John this way, that, how good of a person he was, and always heard about the ladies' man, and of course his looks. But you worked on quite a few projects with him also, professionally, and one of the things that's pretty cool that you're doing is you're putting this in your books. A nice little tribute to John. When are these going to be starting to show up?
Let's see, forgive me, next week. It starts next Wednesday. It's going to be in all our October books. He just, I mean, yeah, it's surreal. I mean,
yeah.
Well,
like I said,
Nikki, can I ask you a question? I think I know the answer, because I've heard it from others. His time to finish a cover was unlike anybody else's. He never, I mean, not that I'd heard, he never missed deadlines. He always had like a planned out cover, and it finished on time. I never heard any of the kind of dragging his heels stories about him. Can you talk about that?
No, I mean, John, I'll say there's a few artists like this, like Alex Ross is like this, right?
Right.
Alex is, and I'm just comparing the two because both of those guys are consummate professionals. They never miss a deadline unless there's a big reason. But like, Alex and John, they will both, I can't fully speak for Alex, but I think this is the case, spends more time than any other artist I know actually designing a cover. And that's what John does. He spends more time thinking about the cover, what he's going to do with the cover, how he's going to do the cover, designing the cover before he even draws it, because he maps it out in his mind to make sure that it's what he thinks it should be. And I mean, like I said, I mean, if you look, pulling up that first and that last Lone Ranger cover, even there, that first and that last Lone Ranger cover, he didn't look at that and say, how much can I sell the original art for? He just said, how great can this cover be? And that's where he put his focus. He put his focus on, how do I make this cover great? If he would have put Dan Reed on the floor with blood on him and everything, would have sold the original for more money, but he didn't care about that. When he was doing Astonishing X-Men and he was given the opportunity to do something else, instead of just falling behind, I mean, he sat down with Marvel and said, look, can we make Astonishing X-Men bi-monthly? Because I want to give Astonishing John was fast enough that he could have done Astonishing X-Men and other stuff, but then the work would have suffered. Then it would have been...
Brian, pull up those Astonishing covers.
Yeah.
Because I want to talk about... So for a guy like John, and I mean, there were times when he did have a thematic theme through several of his covers, the later Astonishing covers.
Yeah.
I think about that. But when you look at this was post 2001 Ultimate Spider-Man. This is, I want to say 2003, if it pops up, 2003, maybe 2004.
Yeah, 2003.
Okay. So this is only within a year or two of kind of the entire paradigm shifting back to periodical comic books for Marvel and DC. And launching with somebody like Joss Whedon, who's off of Buffy at this time. I don't think Firefly had come out yet, or maybe it just had come out. But either way, he could have done anything. But when you look at the covers that he did for those first several Astonishings, there's no rhyme or reason to them. They're compelling a story through the covers for the first time in years. Yeah, go to 2 and 3. To me, 2 is just amazing.
I love 2. I love 3, though. When I think of Astonishing X-Men, this is the cover that I see in my mind's eye when I think of Astonishing X-Men.
Yeah, and I want to say issue 6 or 7 was when I opened my store. What does this have years there? 04, so it'd be 05, so it's 7. Yeah, it was 2000, or I'm sorry, issue 7 was when I opened my store. That blew me away, and I was selling it really good. So I literally was hunting every single one of his back issues. Yeah, the Emma Frost cover is amazing.
There's no shortchanging. I mean, even when John was doing 2 covers a month, it was only because he wanted to do different things.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, talk about a light that shine too bright that, I mean, there's nothing I can say that anyone else wouldn't say. I mean, I was blessed. I was blessed with his friendship. I was blessed to have worked with him. I'm a better person for having had him in my life. The industry's better having had him in the industry. And
now they're at a loss because we've lost them.
And just to follow up with what you're saying, Nikki, people do not realize. I mean, you look at that picture, great looking guy. He was such a just light at the convention scene. You know, you saw him walk, and he was, how tall was he? He was like 6'2".
I don't remember how tall he was,
but he's taller than me. You know, he would stand out at the convention. You would see him after the convention. He was just a beacon of light. And it wasn't just his beauty. It was just like he had a way of carrying himself that wasn't egotistical. It was just like, I'm here. Let's have some fun, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
hey, Nick, can I ask you a question real fast?
Of course.
Are one-on-one relationships less precious now with all these social platforms that are 24/7?
I think to a degree that we're all busier and the social platforms, I don't want to say make you more disconnected. It makes you feel more connected in some levels, but not on others. I think when you have a relationship, you have a relationship, you know? I mean, it's um if you're asking me are you asking me the friendship part or the business?
Yeah, the friendship part. The friend, no, getting to know the real person beyond the industry.
If you're really friends, the social media doesn't change it. If you're really friends, if you're socially friends, then you're socially friends. I mean, it's I would make it akin to when I'll say when we were in high school or college, because I only hang around comic people now. So I mean, just I still hang around some people I went to high school and college with, but there weren't too many. But like when you were in high school and you would have like your two friends, but there would be a gang of you together. It'd be the two you really liked that you talk to the most, but you'd be part of the gang of people. You know, it could be 8 of you there, and you're friendly with the other 5, but it's the 2 that you're friends with that you're friends with. But you're still friendly or friends with the other guys, just not the same. And that's the way it was with John. You know, I'll tell another story, and I'm going by memory. Captain America, the story that John was working on, I don't remember how far he and John Reber were into it, but when 9/11 happened, they threw out everything they were doing and they started over.
Yeah.
Whatever art John did got thrown away. It was like, this is the story we're telling. You know, we're telling the story of bombs hitting. We're telling the story of war. This changes everything that we're doing now. We're, you know, Captain America versus Hydra or whatever, you know, that's it's a more personal story. And they didn't do that to say, you know, with we're making a stand about 9/11. They were saying this is what Captain America would do.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
this is where the story should be. And I think that also, I mean, think about it. How many issues of Captain America did he do? Like 6,
Ton.
right?
I thought did he do more than that? I think he did more than that, didn't he?
Well, there's different series that came out later that he was also attached to. You're talking about that first series, that 2000 series.
The 2001, 2002. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say it was probably around 5 or 6. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that initial 6-issue run, 5-issue or 6-issue run, laid the groundwork of him being one of the definitive Captain America creators.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Regardless of how much he did after that, because I think, didn't like Jay Lee do 7 and Up or somebody else?
The thing I remember about John's Captain America was he did such an amazing job of drawing the pieces of his armor, these little pieces of his armor.
Mail, yeah.
And John, that was John's thing that he did, and it stands out so much to me. His Captain America, I think, because of, for whatever reason, you're right, Nick. It's the standout Captain America of the modern age. I would say, in my opinion.
Yeah, he did the first 6. Then it was Trevor Harshen, and then it was Jay Lee. And
but then he came back to do the main series, and he did a mini series with Joss Whedon.
Yeah, he did Captain America Fallen, and he did other things later. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, he was brought back because this was such an iconic reboot of Captain America too.
Yeah, those 6 issues were just out of this world fantastic. And I mean, one of the editors at Marvel, keep in mind in 2001, we're talking fax machines, not scans and emails. He would get excited when John was coming in with 5 pages. He would be like, dude, you got to see this Captain America. It is fantastic. Wait, I cannot wait to get these 5 pages in. Like, that was back at the time where you would deliver the art to the publisher or send it to the inker to send it to the colorist. But I mean, look at how elegant Captain America is there. Look at how perfect he is. That face, that armor says everything.
The armor looks so good. I mean, it just looks, it looks amazing. It's unreal.
It is,
man.
And that's the whole thing. Like Planetary was critically acclaimed and commercially successful. And he, with John A. Reber, because we got to give credit where credit's due, were a great team. And they took, because, I mean, if you think about it, you had the monthly Captain America series from back in the day. Then you had Heroes Reborn. Then you had Heroes Return. And then they relaunched with Cassaday. And this was, you can almost say this is before Cassaday was Cassaday. This is what made Cassaday. And he just, I mean, look at this. I mean, look at the way he has the shadow in the background.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the last person I remember drawing Captain America with the American flag where I got goosebumps. And keep in mind, I'm old, okay? But Marvel Fanfare number 18 by Frank Miller.
I was just going to say that.
When Frank goes back into the burning house and they're like, I mean, like, I'm getting goosebumps. And they're like, everybody's out. And Frank says, no, she's still in there. And he comes out with the American flag. That was the last time I felt like that. And looking at that, I'm like, and John had a lot of reverence for Frank, and I'm sure that had to be a little bit of an influence.
Amen.
And I mean, there's nothing. You cannot run out of great things to say about him. He just, I mean, he was human. Obviously he wanted, he didn't want to be working all the time at conventions all the time. He wasn't a convention guy. It's why he rarely did conventions where he got paid, because he didn't want to be tied to a table. He didn't like doing panels. But amazingly, I was really lucky. Like, I just remember him flying to Wizard World, Texas to be on panels because we were talking about the Spider, because we were talking about Green Hornet, because that was the thing that really got him going. I mean, when we did the Green Hornet series, he wanted to do covers to all 3 series. He wanted to be part of Kevin Smith, Matt Wagner, and Brett Matthews. He wanted all 3 to work. He wanted it to be really exciting. He did not do the Kato series. He was like, yeah, it's Kato. Like I said, like, he knew what he wanted to do, and what he wanted to do was the best he could do. And that's just what kept him going, and that's what made him great. The guy could have made a lot more money just doing money things, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all gotta make money to live. We all gotta feed our family. We all gotta take care of the people we love. For John, it was, his karma was better than most. I mean, just because you're a good person doesn't mean good things happen to you. Bad things happen to good people. Good things happen to bad people. I can say the worst thing happened to John, which is he died of a heart attack at 52. So bad things do happen to good people. But he lived a life that you can admire. Take the talent. If he had none of the talent, he would still be the person he was.
Yeah.
He would still be this great person that if you met him, you would have a warmth, an appreciation, you know? I always kidded around saying, you know, John was an old soul. You know, his email address was J Mad Shadow because he was a fan of Cream in the 70s, you know? So,
Well, I'll say this, Nick. You were very lucky to have
Yes.
known him the way you have. He was also lucky to have you in his life, obviously, or he wouldn't spend as much time with you as he did. And I seriously thank you for coming on. I know it's been a hard week for you, and you know,
I appreciate it.
big respect, you know, for doing this right here, and you know, it's something you were I imagine you'd do anyways. But I know how close you were to him and how tough this has been, and I know you're going to be, you know, doing whatever you can to help the family in the future and keeping his legacy alive the best way you can. So. You know, we really appreciate you coming on and talking about this, and then hopefully the next time we can have you on, maybe sometime after New York Comic-Con, we'll do some New York Comic-Con talk and you know, talk about the better times.
Guys, anytime you want me, I'm here.
Appreciate you, Nick. Much
Take
love,
care,
brother.
guys.
Feel our best.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you soon, brother.
Yep.
That's one of the good guys, ladies and gentlemen.
It
One
is.
of the guys
Absolutely.
that yeah, he's
Yeah.
one of the best in the industry.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is I've known Nicky, you know, a long time. I had no idea that he was as close as he was with John.
Yeah.
You know, you know that everybody has these business relationships, and you don't realize that while you're doing these business relationships, you're building friendships on the side.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I would tell you about Nick is what you learn in this industry when you get the call at 1 a.m. or midnight or whatever, 10 p.m. There's this, hey, and the first thing when you hear the person's voice, you say, okay, what does this person want? He wants something. When Nick calls and says, hey, it's like, oh, cool, we get to talk. He's that type of person. You know, he doesn't have an angle. He's just calling you just to talk.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's the good thing about Nick.
Real quick, before we bring on our next guest, well, we are bringing on our next guest. One of the things that Nick kind of talked about a little bit there was when he was talking about how John decided to kind of change their story when 9/11 happened, and how it wasn't about, you know, politics. It was about how Steve, you know, how Captain America would deal with this, and how you know, the not the team or the policy changes, but how one man would change things. And I want to give a big shout out to our next guest, who made an absolutely amazing video that I shared on the Beyond Wednesdays community page on YouTube. And shout out to Emmett at Haven for Heroes. He put out this latest video, The Church of Comics, and in it, he talks about that. He talks about how, you know, his favorite comics, you know, throughout the years have been, you know, like Easy Company and those comics that taught you how to be a man, right? How to act, how every man should act, and whether your political views or whatever, every man or every human should act a certain way, and how those ethics and those morals, and we want that, and that's a very important thing in comics, and it really blew me away. So I suggest everybody go check it out. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Emmett from Haven for Heroes. Emmett, how you doing, brother?
Good, man. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh,
Welcome,
man.
Emmett.
Yeah. I just wanted to say before we get into Baltimore about John, that Lone Ranger run is one of the perfect comic runs in comics. If you haven't read it, find the trades, find the floppies, read that series. The cover work, the interior storytelling, it is perfect.
It's cinematic. It's cinematic.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And not only like the badge with the blood and the bullet that he brings up. If you go a couple of down where he's got his back turned and there's two guys behind him, and he's looking over his shoulder at them. I mean, just every single one of these is just about
Yeah.
It just chills. I couldn't wait to read this series when it was out. It was on my pull list. I read every single issue, and it's amazing. In fact, after seeing this, I really need to get the trade so I can read it over. I don't have any of these in my store because I hand sell every single one. When somebody's like, "Oh, I don't have anything to read," I'm like, "Well, if you haven't read this, you have to." That, and I have to say about his Captain America is that one of the few guys that could take a character from the 40s, update him, and still be true to who Captain America was, costume-wise. It felt new, fresh, but 100% the guy from the 1940s. Just fantastic. Perfect.
That's my favorite time period. I think my favorite time period for like stories and movies and whatever is like the 1860s to like the 1940s for stories, dramas, this and that. Yeah. It's just so different.
Can I sidetrack us real quick before we get into Baltimore then? Because one of my biggest beefs this week is the announcement. I don't even know his name, Kyle something, for Green Lantern, and it's Hal Jordan is going to be a 62-year-old man. And now I'm not ageist. I'm 52. I've been reading Hal Jordan since I was probably 15. I love the Green Lantern. Hal Jordan's my Green Lantern. Guy Gardner, clearly, because I'm such an asshole, is my my spirit animal. However, I just don't think this is not how you take a character like Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan is kind of wherever you're going to put him in the spectrum and drop him in. He's never 62 against 20-something-year-old Guy Gardners and Kyles, and that's Alan Scott's role in the Green Lantern mythos.
But I don't think they're going to play him. I don't think they're going to play him off as a 62-year-old. I think
he's a 62-year-old actor. What do you?
But actors play younger actors and older actors all the time. That's the power of the movies.
He's playing 50-year-old. I don't think Hal Jordan is 50 years old. Incarnation that I can think of.
I think they're going to play him in the mid-40s.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah.
Okay.
And Nathan Fillion is playing Guy Gardner, so he's much older than Guy Gardner.
No, Fillion's not playing Guy Gardner.
Yes, he is.
Who's the Guy Gardner that they've been showing in the Superman then?
Should he land the part of DC's latest Green Lantern, he will join the team alongside Nathan Fillion, who will appear as next summer's Superman as Guy Gardner.
Oh, Jesus. Well, that doesn't look like it doesn't. The pictures I saw of Guy Gardner didn't look like Nathan Fillion.
No. Kyle Shan. Yeah. This guy's playing Green Lantern, and then Nathan Fillion is playing Guy Gardner. Yeah.
Okay, so that's two over 50s playing the two quintessential.
Well, they're doing it in a certain way. It's supposed to have the feel of True Detective in space. It's supposed to be like a darker. Two detectives, they always called it, even before they said True Detectives, they were kind of like it was supposed to be like a Lethal Weapon type thing, so two older detectives that are trying to figure shit out and deal with probably age at the same time, I imagine. So but
sorry, the sidetrack. But I mean but here's the thing: when you take Captain America, for instance, Captain America is quintessentially 70 to 90 years old in reality, but he's frozen at a certain period of time, so he's always got that youthful 30 to 40-year-old look. What are you laughing about, Jesse?
What character has aged in comic books since 1939? Name one.
Alex Ross's. Every iteration of Alex Ross characters.
All right.
So Baltimore Comic-Con was this last week, and shout out to Kal-El with the $20 super chat that says, "Evening, everybody. Rest in peace, John Cassaday." I agree. So Baltimore Comic-Con, I saw you dropped a couple social media posts, and you go to Baltimore every year, do you not, Emmett?
If I absolutely can, I can't miss it. It's my favorite convention. It's all comics, 95% comics, and yeah, a lot of great dealers, a lot of great deals, and a lot of the old time guys from, you know, when I really loved comics. You know, Walt Simon's almost always there. Louise, his wife, is with them. And then Mike Grell last year, he wasn't there this year, but Chaikin's always there. Starling was there. Yeah. So there's like a really, like all the people I want to see and talk to about comics. But I ended up running into a lot of people from recognized me from YouTube, and I really ended up talking to people a lot more than shopping for books. But yeah, there's a lot of great dealers out there. Comics Logic out of Virginia.
Yep.
They're really good guys. I usually buy from them on Sunday. I had to leave early because we had a huge festival here in New York. They closed down the street in front of my shop. It's my best day of the year, and because Baltimore moved the con, it kind of screwed with that, so I had to leave one day early. But the con was great. It was a lot of fun. I'm actually going to have one of the guys that was there dealing Paul's comics. He's actually local up to me, and he does all the conventions. He's a convention dealer, East Coast. So we're going to talk a little bit about business and how his business works for my show about opening a comic shop or doing business as a comic, selling comics.
A lot of the people that that I follow on social media that went to Baltimore said the same thing. It's always Baltimore's that place where a lot of comic retailers like to go shop for comics, right? Shout out to, I know you did some shopping. I saw you picking up some dollar books to you bought dollar books to refill your dollar bins, which is very interesting. We'll get into that. I saw Phil from Vintage Comics and Toys did some buying out there too, which was cool to see. I'll be interested to hear from him how his con went. But was there anything that really stood out to you from this year's con that maybe didn't the years before?
A lot less graded books. I've been hearing and seeing it, you know, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, you have a ton of videos about it." So it's definitely not because of me. I don't have that big of a reach, but it's out there, man. There's a lot less, you know, where the whole wall would be graded books. They had a line of graded books, but they had a lot more raws now. I saw a lot more raw books.
What was that? What was that number that got quoted to us last week or the week before? That 77% of the books are being sold are all raws now. What was? Do you remember that, Brian?
Yeah, I'll find that. Shout out to Matty DeVoe from Cover Price.
Oh, Cover Price. That's right. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Emmett.
Well, actually, I saw that before I left from Baltimore, and that's why I was specifically looking for that, because I wanted to see, hey, you know, it would be true at conventions the same as online. If raw books are selling better, they would have more raw books, and they did. Now there's one guy that's all he had was graded. Like he just had boxes of graded books, and
getting out maybe he's like, this is my place to get out of them, you know.
Right. Well, but I think you got to look in the history of comics, and just till modern time, a vast majority of customers buy raw books. I mean, it's just you're not going. The change over the next decade is not going to be more than 1%. It's just raw books sell. It's just that's part of the nature of the business.
So Emmett, one of the things that, you know, I haven't watched your content. I've been really busy, so I haven't watched your content in a couple of weeks. Have you commented and continue to comment about the latest CGC scandals like Banana Gate? And
I haven't, but I haven't done my Banana Gate video.
Okay.
Yet. Yeah,
okay.
But,
what's your take on it? I mean, clearly we know your take on graded books and CGC and CBCS in general.
Yeah, CBCS a little bit less. I like that they jumped on this. I think that the last couple of scandals they stayed off of because they had their own mess.
Right.
I think they feel now that they have their own ship righted and they can go after CGC. So I've loved their videos about, putting a banana in the case and grading it. I thought that was hysterical. I thought it was really good marketing. But I think it just continues to show CGC doesn't have any transparency and any integrity. So the video when they're showing, they have that cute blonde girl who's one of the new graders.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Here's my energy
You guys
drink.
played
Let's
that
go
over-
walk around the
Yeah.
place with all of the rare comic books.
Passing by people not wearing gloves. They're not in a clean room. They have their coffee mugs on and people walking by your thousands of dollar books sitting on regular desks, no kind of cleanliness, precautions taken at all. It made me, I was like, how does anybody send them books after that video? And then the guy who's like their main grader picking out 9s and 10s while he riffle shuffled the books.
Tap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and then people, I get a lot of people comment to me about, well, I want my book protected. I'm like, they don't guarantee protection of your book.
Nope.
They guarantee
the
the
G
grade.
in no way, shape, or form means guaranteed, even though that's what it spells.
Right. So, I think they do guarantee the grade, but only as long as it's in their holder. If
Yes.
the holder is compromised, then they don't have to do it. They don't have any quality control because they're damaging the books in these banana cases, and then nobody's looking to say, oh, we damaged the book closing it. We can't now send this back to the customer. But they do because there's no quality control. This is just the big, huge corporation who's bought them now. This is not a small mom and pop who are proud of what they do.
Right.
It's just produce. And, it's just not the same.
Do you think that we're seeing less graded books at cons because of the issues that these companies are having, or do you think that all these new collectors that joined during the pandemic are finally catching on that graded books aren't the way to collect comics?
Well, I think they're starting to figure out that they could buy a lot more comics raw than buy them graded or grade their own, because the cost of grading is taking away. You send in 10 books, you could have had a really good Silver Age book for the grading price of the 10 books you sent in.
Yep.
And then if they give you a low grade than what you thought it was, or it comes in a damaged case and they've ruined the books that you paid them to grade.
Exactly.
What was the benefit? What was the upside?
Lost them.
Yeah.
I had one of the guys who just recently opened a comic shop. He sent me his story. He wanted to have a couple of graded books for when he opened his new shop. Sent them in. They said they lost them, and they offered him free grading to the amount of the books. And he's like, I can't replace that book.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to get the cash for it. I'm going to get free grading for people.
That's like Disney offering that guy whose wife died, who asked for $50,000 and they said, sorry, you had Disney Plus. That's like saying, we're going to send you meal vouchers for Disneyland. Come on back.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Emmett, let me ask you 2 questions as one question, actually. What percentage of graded books, if you sell graded books, is it? And what is your conversation percentage on graded books in your store? I'm not talking about on your YouTube channel, in your store.
Right. I don't sell graded books. I have some that have come in collections, and I have sold them. Every once in a while you need a little money on a month that's slow. I've sent books to auction houses, and they had them graded and sold them. They did very poorly at auction, actually, even during the boom time. because the auction house, put a 7. I had a Fantastic 449, and I'm not afraid of saying their name. Hake's auction house put it against an 8-0. So 2 FF49s in the same auction, splitting the buyers over a 0.5. So neither of our books performed well. They buried a Something's Killing the Children New York City Comic-Con retailer exclusive 9.8. They buried that at the end of the auction when nobody had any money, and it underperformed by half. So it only did 380 when they were getting 750 on eBay. So I'll never use them again. I had a couple of foreign books, which I had bigger offers for the raw that I got at their auction. One of them I had them send back to me because they wanted to put it in the next auction. It didn't get any bids. So I'm like, I don't know who's buying from them. They're at every convention going, hey, we do great. I'd say no, they don't do great.
Right.
Then in-house, like I said, I've gotten some. I actually had a guy come in and bring me this huge box filled with graded. And he's like, man, I did great on Whatnot. I won all of these books. And they were all like 9.0 Daredevil 220. 7.5 of like some modern book. The reprints of Walking Dead. 2 reprints of Walking Dead. Not even like number 1 reprints. Right?
It's
and
like,
they were worthless books.
You can get more for them if you break them out.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't understand who's grading these, or if Whatnot has a deal with CZC to get some free. There's something going on. The fuckery is about somewhere. Because there's books that if you pay $25 to have this graded, you should be shot.
Right.
Because it makes no sense financially.
I can tell you what that is. It's the same thing happened in cards when the grading companies first started in cards. And what you're seeing is we see this influx of new collectors, right, from the pandemic. And at the same time, graded books started skyrocketing. So these new collectors come in and say, well, I could just send anything into grading and it'll, my money will be 10, X fold. Which is completely wrong. The only books that you should be grading are, in my opinion, are mega keys, right? And if you want to, get a couple of, artist collectors, certain artists, that are big, Scotty Young, Art Adams, like, big books, that type of thing. But you can't be grading the books like you're talking about, Emmett, because they're not worth the cost of grading when you sell them, even in high grade.
Right. And
Well,
that's what I told them.
I'll brag a little bit here. I'm making this post tonight. I just sold the 9.9 Ghost Rider 28 first. Is that Midnight Suns?
Yeah, Midnight Suns. Yep.
9.9 for $699.
Nice.
I mean, every once in a while, there's an upside to grading.
There is, but I don't want that money.
Well, here's something interesting about Baltimore. This was, I think, the first year that CGC decided to do on-site grading again. So, did you hear any? Was there any talk about that at Baltimore this year?
No, their stand was very empty when I was there. I stood there for a while to see if anybody would say anything, but they didn't. I wasn't around them a lot. I went and had a lot of conversations, which I didn't videotape because I didn't. I'm not a great filmer. I have a really great film crew.
You do.
So,
great video, man.
Was PSA there? Did you see PSA there at all?
I did not see PSA, but CBCS was there.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't see Overstreet Access. They had a booth, but I didn't see anybody at it because I did want to talk to them because I wanted to do another video with them because they've had a lot of updates. I talked to there's these group that's always at Baltimore. They're called their comic is called Tales of the Extra Normal, and they also make vinyl music. They have a couple of punk bands, and they make tapes. They got this Trash Diva. Let me see. I have to put it in front of my face. You can see it. It's the girl,
Cassettes are coming back.
Yeah, from the girl on the cover is from Flamingo, all the John Waters books. Yeah, this is them. These guys, if you like the punk rock.
Divine?
Yeah. That's who's on the cover of
Nice.
their tape. So they have 4 issues out, and I keep buying from them, and I've sold out. I just bought like all their books again. They're in like 3rd or 4th prints. I get a lot of city traffic that comes up, from New York, and they buy this stuff up, they're a great group they're just a group of friends that make creative content, comic books, music. So they're real cool. I always stop by there.
One of the things sorry, go ahead. Keep going.
No, go ahead.
No, keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. And then the other person I always go to see there is John Workman. And here's a guy who worked, it's got to be maybe 50 years in comics. He's still working in comics. And he's just such a great, kind, mild-mannered guy who's been in comics forever. Was at DC, heavy metal. He's a lot of people, when you say his name, they think of letterer. But I picked up some of his and these are just prints. They're not things, but
oh wow.
Yeah, so he was working on a Betty Page book that they scrapped, but like that's his cover. And then he did a lot of really good girl stuff, and he would do a lot of filler art for heavy metal too. So this is Wild Things.
Wow, that's
one.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's incredible. And then, like, in the business, everybody was trying to make a living, right? And wherever you got a spot to make a living, you take it. So I talked to him so I was lucky enough being in New York, you get a lot of stuff that's been passed down to family members because both headquarters used to be in New York. So I got a part of Bob Loesch's collection.
Oh, wow.
Bob Loesch was DC's color guy for many, many years, but a very competent artist. He used to work in commercial art, and he was friends with Neil Adams. Neil Adams is the one who brought him over to DC. And then I was telling this to John, and John was like, oh, yeah, I know Bob. And he tells me this whole story about Neil and Bob and him. And, man, he's just got stories, like, for days about everybody. Frank Miller, he's friends with Frank Miller. On and on about, like, all this inner workings of the comics, of what these guys used to talk about, and the bullpens and all this. Just great. And then, like, all the freelance people he worked with at Heavy Metal, National Lampoon, like, just a wealth of stories for the whole industry, and just a great solid guy. And he's, like I said, he did a dust cover for DC. He drew all, the Trinity plus Green Lantern and Flash, and they're all on the dust cover, and he's got that you can buy. You can walk right, there's no line. You can walk right up to John and talk to him for 45 minutes at Baltimore. And he's got the coolest things. He's got, like, stuff from heavy metal, like the color. Like, nobody really collects this stuff, but I love it. The test pages.
Yeah.
That has the color thing on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he'll have like 100 of those things in there. And yeah, they're just cool stuff. And he got smart. He's not selling any more of his original stuff yet. But he's I spent a long time with John, and his wife Kathy's really great person too. So they're a real sweet couple. The lines were bigger for I couldn't get to see Walt and Louise. Their line was a little too long. Like I said, I only had till Saturday at 3:00. Now, it wasn't crazy packed, but people were spending money.
Right, sure.
People were like, sometimes you actually like it better that way, because when they're shoulder to shoulder, a lot of people get uncomfortable. They're like, oh, I'm not going to look anymore. I'll buy the books I got. Man, you could have like 3 long boxes to yourself, at this con, which, I bought a little more than I would out of the boxes. But some of the things I bought, I buy these every time I see them. Let's see. We'll
Middle.
put it in front of my feet. There we go. A little
Oh
bit.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Skybound.
Skybound, first Clementine.
Yep.
2, 3 in the dollar bins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sure. That's crazy. Yeah.
You know, now here's a guy. This is Black Flag. Let me put it in the middle because I got
yeah.
more.
Fraga and McFarlane. Fraga boom.
Yeah.
Fraga
Yeah.
McFarlane. So I followed Fraga on Instagram for a long time. His art, that's Fraga's art, when he's not doing Liefeld, is freaking amazing.
I
Oh,
agree.
yeah.
And he keeps going back to doing Liefeld work, like when he did his Kickstarter, and he's better. He should do his own work.
Yeah.
Well, he just got done having major surgery not too long ago, major neck surgery. Yeah. And he's been kind of out of comics for a while, and he's been dealing with neck problems for a long time. But it's funny you bring up Dan Fraga and Rob Liefeld, because Rob posted this week. I was telling Jesse about it. Here's Fraga right here. And Liefeld holding court back in the day, and Liefeld put out this picture, and he said, "And never, ever draw the feet under any circumstances."
So, Emmett, let me ask you this question about Baltimore. If I gave you 3 areas, put these in order for us. You got the main floor, you got Artist Alley, and you got Small Press. What is your pecking order? What do you feel you have the most fun in?
For me, Small Press, because I love business, and it's talking to them about how they're going to bring it to me if they're not being distributed by somebody. You know, is there going to be a shipping cost? Is there going to be, what's my margins? I spend a lot of time with them, seeing what we can work out. How many, can I get some more off if I buy? How much more do I have to buy before I get off? Are you printing, is it forever print, or are you printing second print, third print, fourth print? I don't want a forever print. It could be the best story in the world and my customers won't read it. If they know it's a forever print, they're turned off completely. It's what happened to Rags. You remember that book, Rags?
Yeah,
That was a good book. And it had some good art, especially good if you like good girl art. And it tanked after third-ish once they found out, oh, we're just going to print number ones forever. We're just going to keep it in print. I mean,
at least the old underground guys would put a sticker on the
change the
reprint.
price.
Yeah.
Anything like the little difference in the backgrounds. So small print, and then it's probably the artists.
Right.
I love going around because it's trying to make that relationships like you guys do. And are you close to New York? Do you come through New York? They're like, oh yeah, I'm in the city. No, I'm not in the city. You have to be willing to travel up north a bit. It's not far, but it's not close. You can't get there from here, kind of thing, right? It's 2.5 hours on the train from the city, and we're only 60 miles. The train stops at every stop. There's no express, but we're the last stop on the Jersey line, out of Metro North Jersey line. So there's that, and then I'm go around. I love to shop because I'm always looking for this stuff. This is
You're clearing out, man. What is that?
First Comics.
Adventures. Yeah,
I love
Adventures. Yeah,
I love Capital, First, and Pacific. PC.
Yeah.
I just love their books. This is
just quick question: was First there? Because First
they're back. They just put out a new book.
Okay.
They were not there. It would have been a perfect place for them to go because it's, Baltimore doesn't cost what New York costs, not even a tenth. So I think all the small places should find these little conventions that, you can get a table for maybe a couple of $100. Brian, were you in when they got their table, when the Flip Side got the table out in Baltimore?
Yep.
What did they charge them for that table?
It wasn't much. I think it was like less than $1,000 probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, $800,
so
something like that.
you don't need more than a 6 foot for a small print.
No.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I would love to, and I've told Jesse this, I would love to start, attending more cons and doing it as, getting a table at a con, and promoting whatever, whether it's, Beyond Wednesdays, CBSN.
I'm retiring from my gig the end of October.
Ooh.
So if you want to split some tables next year, I'm gonna be down for it. Are you guys familiar with Chicken Devil?
Yes,
No.
yes, Chicken Devil. Here's what I'm mad about Chicken Devil. Let me tell you, you're going to get me on my
Mad
rant
Cave.
here.
Is it Aftershock?
So Chicken
Mad
Devil.
It is.
Yeah.
It
Chicken
is,
Devil.
sadly.
Yeah, Chicken Devil came out with #1, and it was a cutout mask.
Yeah.
On the cover, right? So it was one of those masks you cut out that had the little holes. And freaking people are bringing me this book in to, the books to sell. And #1 doesn't have a cover on it because they cut out the mask. I'm like, who does that?
Yeah. This is a if you like Breaking Bad, this is a book for you. It's awesome. And the artist is Hayden Sherman. And this guy is doing things in comics that nobody's doing. He's really doing fresh new stuff. And he's now working at DC doing Batmans and all other kinds of stuff. But if you look at some of his indie work, doing his perspective, he did Dark Spaces with Scott Snyder.
Oh, yeah.
That Fire book. If you look at the angles, like some of his angles that he's taking, he's doing a lot of interesting stuff art-wise and with his colors. If you look, he did a book called The Few with my nephew, and the color, his choices that he uses in, he's a real artist. He's doing very different stuff. Maybe the art style is not for everybody. It's kind of a little Frank Miller meets the French guy.
Morbius?
Well,
Mobius, that's it.
Yeah, Mobius.
we heard, or I heard that, like San Diego, which it also happened, Yi was at a place in San Diego, and a fire happened. There was a fire in Baltimore this year, a 3-alarm fire at Baltimore this year. Yeah,
crazy. You could hear it everywhere.
Wow, unbelievable. Billy Tucci showing pictures, massive fire across the street from our hotel. Palmiotti, fire next door at Baltimore Comic-Con. That's really close. That's scary.
Yeah. I didn't see Jimmy there, man. I wish because I like to stop and talk to him. I mean, he definitely doesn't know who I am, but I have spoke with him at a couple of different conventions, and I really like talking to him. He has
Jimmy
is interesting take.
Emmett, the great thing about Jimmy is he's not on Facebook. All right.
Right.
Anti-Facebook guy. So if you get a hold of him on Twitter, just get a hold of him on Twitter. He will respond. He loves doing shows. Do some research before you bring him on, though, and kind of keep him in check a little. But I've been on about 10 shows with him. He is an amazing guy.
He actually, I'm glad you're bringing him up because I had saved this post. Jimmy's another one of those guys that's a big art collector. And Baltimore is a nice place to go for comic art also. Did you see a lot of original art being sold? I mean, you picked up some, so.
Yeah, they have that same stand that goes from convention to convention that has like
Anthony's
tables.
Anthony's.
Yeah. Yep. So they were there. You know where I saw a lot of great art is the Big Apple Comic-Con. Like a lot of those city guys have like a lot of amazing early stuff. They want ridiculous money for it.
Emmett, one thing that, since we're talking about Baltimore Con, can you tell us, me and Dennis are obviously retailers, but since we're interviewing you, tell us the goal of a retailer going and how much of that time is actually you personally going versus the retail part of it.
Like I said earlier, I love business so much. It's like 90% business, 10%, because that is what I love to do. Like everybody's like, "Oh, you're retiring. Where are you going to?" I'm like, "I'm going to go to work."
Yeah.
That's my. I love work and business and making a deal, and like that. That's my love. That's my passion. Next to comics, like I could able to put the two together, and not go broke. I'm in. So, yeah, it's a lot of business. I try to talk to, like, what upsets me so much. I love the conventions and that artists come out and that they're able to make, but like, it's almost like they make comics so they can sell at conventions.
Right. There you go.
Because the comic companies aren't paying them. And so they're on like this mad hustle.
I hate seeing my artist buddies have to waste time hustling because they're not getting the money they deserve.
Right.
And they don't have time. See, I go to the conventions for the flip side on that, Emmett.
Right.
I go for the camaraderie. I go to see my friends that I haven't seen.
Right.
And when I'm like, oh shit, if I sit here and talk for 5 minutes, I'm blocking
right.
the customers
money
for this. But then I watch a huge artist with just lines of people going right past them, and they're no, okay. Look, no, okay. It's so disgusting that the industry that we are a part of doesn't respect the industry that we respect sometimes.
1,000%. This is the thing where, I say comics really need to bring back ads in comics.
Yeah.
And figure out a way to make more money, not selling the books itself, but selling so you could pay the artists and the writers a fair amount of money. So they don't, if they go to conventions, they can do it to meet the fans and have real enjoyment and not be like, I'm on a mad hustle. If I don't get on this book, then I won't be able to, my convention season's going to be shitty if I don't get a good book to be on.
But that's the beauty of, I know it's I don't know if it's still a hot button issue with you, but that's the beauty of Comicsgate and what Ethan does. He has the interaction on his show. They have a direct conduit to buy his product. So if he goes to a convention, it's not about hustling to do that. It's about sitting at his booth to meeting more people. It's not about the selling. And I kind of respect that part of the direct sales.
His selling though is on, so through Indiegogo, through his YouTube channel.
Yep.
And that marketing is kind of,
it's a different type of marketing. I'm learning.
Very negative.
Yes.
Very negative.
Yes. But I'd rather see somebody I love that's talented like Ethan do that than have to sit at a booth and go, hey, have you seen Cyberfrog? Have you seen?
Speaking of those guys, one of the things that was very interesting about Baltimore is Baltimore was the first con for them to be back at since the C2E2 event. Both Shane Davis, Malin were their booths were right next to each other, right next to Billy Tucci's booth. So they all had booths next to each other, which was very cool. I think that's a very interesting piece of news that I'm glad that we didn't have the same type of thing happen that happened in Chicago.
I think Comicsgate, if I can be completely, I'm always completely
honest.
Yeah,
hell yeah. We don't want anything less.
I'm filtered.
Right,
hold on. Yeah, hold on.
1 second. 5 seconds.
Yo, let's do this.
Valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
All right, we are back.
Where they were a very big movement for a while in the Comicsgate
industry. Yeah.
Comicsgate. They have started to eat themselves.
Yes,
They're
have.
factioning off and breaking down. And I think the larger guys now are needing to move back to the center because there'll be a point there's a whole, like, where they used to get all these people to buy their books, less and less of those people are coming out because they've all factioned off.
Yes.
You're either not Comicsgate enough, you're too Comicsgate.
New CG, old CG. Yeah.
CG. There's a lawsuit going on in New York about libel and slander and the use of Comicsgate, who owns it. Ethan, I think, believes he owns it.
Well, Ethan won that, I thought. Didn't that just happen where it came out that he won it not too long ago? I think he won that.
Not too long ago, but there's a difference between, it's kind of a hard thing to copyright.
Yeah.
Right? Is it together? Is it Comicsgate all one word or Comicsgate 2 words?
Well, here's the biggest problem. The biggest problem is what you said, is that there's these guys. Listen, I don't care where it is. I don't care if it's in comic books. I don't care if it's in, a workplace, military, whatever. Humans have a hard time, a big group of all getting along together all the time. And you're always going to have drama in the background. I mean, hell, comic book drama on Saturday night, you're going to have drama when a big group of people are together. There's some people that just don't know how to play well with others, and that's just the way it is. And they've really have started factioning off in a big way. A lot of the guys who used to, bleed Comicsgate now are fighting against each other. And
yeah, but you're going to see that in everything.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
yeah.
But that's what you see that's why you see them moving, wanting to get back to conventions. They didn't need them before, right?
No.
They're like, oh, don't have us. We don't need it. We got Indiegogo. We'll make all of our money. We're eating big steaks on YouTube and calling people terrible names and stirring everybody up. But now, mea culpa, move. That's all marketing, and like, to me, that's not
it's evolution, though. It's an evolution.
It's not evolution. It's
I think Kickstarter's
the money.
Crowdfunding is an evolution, Emmett. There's definitely
crowdfunding is, but when if you're doing it where you build a community out of crassness and evilness, when it falls apart, they are pivoting for the money.
Yeah.
They're not pivoting because their views have changed, right? Because they haven't apologized for the behavior. They claim they didn't ever do that when there's many, many, many videos.
I'll chalk that up to a difference of opinions there, Emmett.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it is a difference of opinion. If you like those people, you're going to have a higher opinion of them than I'm just going by what I see.
Well, here's the interesting thing, and I want to jump back to the crowdfunding aspect of it. The crowdfunding aspect of it is such a big part of it that has really helped push them along in a big way. And now that crowdfunding is not so new, and it's easier to do. I think a lot of guys who, considered themselves CG or Comicsgate, they kind of did it because they needed to learn how to do the crowdfunding. Like Aaron Lopresti, Billy Tucci.
Splinter off and do their own thing.
Yeah. And now they're starting to kind of splinter off now that they know how to do it, and it's becoming easier. And you're seeing this real growth in crowdfunding of comics in a big way.
Well, and I don't think it's necessarily just even it's the diversity within the crowdfunding movement.
Yes.
I saw one of my favorite licenses. That's one of those little engines that could. It's kind of like what Emmett, loves about some of his favorite stuff. I love Captain Action, and if you know who Ed Cato is, you'll know Ed Cato loves Captain Action more than any human on this planet. And the fact that he's crowdfunding along with one of the guys from Overstreet, Captain Action and Al Capone. Vampire. I forget what it's called. Can you?
Yeah,
can you look
I
that
have
up
those
there,
Al
Brian?
Capone. It's Al Capone Vampire Hunter.
Yeah.
They did a Punch 12.
Is that the myth? Is that the American myth?
Yeah,
mythology?
American Myth. Yeah, they did a Kickstarter originally, and then Keen Spot, I think, picked them up. Listen, look at Mark Spears. Shout out to Mark Spears.
That's all I want to talk about is that That book would never, Emmett, if that was in a Diamond Previews book, you'd never buy it unless you love Captain Action as much as I did. And even me, I would only buy 2 or 3 of them because I knew there'd only be 1 or 2 people I could hand sell Captain Action and Al Capone Vampire Hunter. But those guys, crowdfunders, go right for their source. They market straight to the only people who love Al Capone and Captain Action and might want to see the 2 of those things, merge up.
But how do you drive people to your, it's how you drive people to your site, right?
Yep.
Do you go around to conventions and sell it to people, hand sell it the idea, and we're doing it on a Kickstarter, start your own video, your YouTube channel, stuff like that? Or do you, stir them up with some kind of other thing and that you'll support?
Well, that's just different. I mean, that's a difference of opinion. Michael Jordan doesn't do any of that, and he sells shoes to both sides. Whereas Gillette told me, a guy with a beard, that I shouldn't be a toxic man baby, or whatever. That's the way they want to sell razors.
Listen, here's
But,
what it is.
Here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. Why did crowdfunding? Hold on. Why did crowdfunding start? What was your option before crowdfunding?
Put your hand out.
No, you're a comic book store, right?
Yeah.
Less comic book stores. There's about 1,200 comic book stores. When I started, there was 10,000 comic book stores, right? Plus, there was probably more than that. We have 1,200 comic book stores. So why are you then trying to sell 1,200 books, 3,600 books to comic book stores, and then hope that they sell it? So crowdfunding is just a new engine that says, listen, we can't get these into the comic book stores, so let's do crowdfunding. Let's go directly to our customer base. Let's grow our customer base by 5%. So there's that notion that we always forget. Crowdfunding is because there are less stores selling product, especially indie product.
Well, plus the margins are much higher.
Oh yeah, sure.
What people are paying for these books is insane.
Well, but you look
let's talk about that.
Brian Pulido. I've spent 19 years as a retailer, and I've watched Brian Pulido test run every single different aspect of selling Lady Death.
Absolutely. I bow down to him. He is the master of it.
Absolutely.
And not only that, is that he is just that, here is my books. You love Lady Death. Here's Lady Death.
Yep.
And people flock. And then he's got, here's all the different levels. If we keep making money,
there was a period of time where Coffin wasn't selling through Diamond, and he was just doing it majority through direct sales. Yeah. And then he was like, okay, so
listen, Diamond made it hard for everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love, there's a love-hate relationship with comic book dealers and Diamond.
Oh yeah, sure. Exactly. So here's the breakdown of Brian Pulido. So Brian Pulido comes to me and he says, Jesse, there's this thing called crowdfunding I want to try. I'm probably going to fail doing this, right? But I want to do it at your store. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, dude. Are you putting on are you coming doing a store sign? No, I'm not doing a store signing. I'm going to come, and what we're going to do is everything we're selling is going to be people across the nation, but we're not going to sell to people in the store. I go, so why do you need to come to the store? And we had been good friends already and all that stuff. And I will tell you that how nervous he was that day. But the fact that the man and Francesca and his team said, we don't care, we got to try this. And that's what you need in the comic book industry. You have to have the people that will say, I'm going to try this, and if I fail, that's okay. Right. And so crowdfunding does allow that, but it depends on the nature of the person. I see posts, oh my gosh, my crowdfunding sucks. Business is horrible. The industry sucks. I'm going to go sell cars. Right. Well, we don't need those people. Move on. And so crowdfunding gives people the opportunity to better themselves as a business person. Emmett just said he's 90% business. He loves business. So I think that's what you want to look at the nature of crowdfunding. I know we're going off into one company, but don't forget there is a concept for crowdfunding.
I just wondered,
crowdfunding is phenomenal.
I brought up Bryan because of the evolution concept.
Oh no, I get that. Yeah,
because he went from the direct model to a Kickstarter crowdfunding model. Then he realized, okay, I can now evolve into going back to that direct market and offering my products at both levels, then expanding it into a third level where he has the convention at his house, basically, and brings the crowd to him. So then he's kickstarting, he's conventioning, and he's retailing. To me, that's how this industry innovates through
and every successful one he has, he teaches thousands of people how to do it.
You guys keep talking. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go let my dog out. Keep talking, okay?
So here's the thing, though, that Emmett was what I believe what Emmett was saying was, if you take Bryan, if we're using Bryan Pulido, what is his main source of selling books? He's created Sworn Nation. He has created a cult that the cult is all one. What Emmett was talking about, how that I'm not going to use the cult for that, but that group has splintered off, so you no longer have that main cult of people buying from you. And those customers, don't forget, you're talking about creators splitting off. Well, customers are deciding where they split off as well.
Right.
And worse than, they're not just splitting off, they're trying to depress. They're working against you. It's not even like, oh, I'm just not going to spend any money with them anymore. It's like, how can I actively bring down their numbers? How can I spread bad will against the people? When they've splintered, it's like a ex-girlfriend. It's bad. Like, if you got to watch some of their YouTubes, it's bad. Dogs wouldn't lick your blood, as my mother would say. It's the groups who have splintered off do not want there's others to be successful.
I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but I mean, one group did try to defraud one of the members by trying to wrestle away the rights to an omnibus, and they've ejected people, and there's no such thing as a happy fired employee.
Yeah, but how do you eject people? There's no membership.
Simple. If you don't get invited back if you aren't playing on the same game that everybody else is playing on.
Right, but then their 5 friends who they're friends with, that are their group of CG or any group, when you break off one, because like I have a community of Magic players or a community of Pokemon players. When you say you're banned because of your behavior, you just don't lose that one customer. You lose that customer and all their friends.
No, exactly. And you have
as they ban people, it starts to break up. And then who did you keep? Did you keep somebody who was maybe
not but would you allow a poisonous Magic player to stay at your store because you're afraid of losing 5 or 6 and fractioning your
but you have to make sure that you have to make sure that you are getting rid of the poison.
Right.
Okay.
Well, right.
I think
this group is unwieldy and like they're just typing behind a screen.
Right.
It's not like people that you can like, oh, I've spoke to them and I know them. I know this guy is lying about this or that, and I know who they are. These people are.
It's all through social media, and that's
it's horrible.
Yeah, and that's not a good place to foster a. Let's be honest, it's not a good place to foster a community. It's hard to foster a community that sticks together.
Sticks together
absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
But it's funny you mentioned that, because this is one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. Talking about fractioning the Magic community. How fun was it to come back from Baltimore?
Fuck me.
And see the Commander restricted banned list.
Painful. I mean, it actually means more sales. You could lose players, but they're going to have to change up their decks, because this is stuff that was in the meta.
This was tech. This was tech cards that have been around for 25 years.
Yeah.
That they're like,
it's going to move. It's going to move Commander big. Now, if people say, well, I'll take the challenge, I'm going to build a new deck, that means more sales for me.
Yeah. So run to the funny things, and of course there's weird side effects too. And Emmett, you can comment as it is. Mana Crypt gets banned immediately. Everybody starts grabbing Mana Vaults. They've moved up 25 to 50% in value in one day.
Right. Oh yeah.
It's
And
just
and did
ridiculous.
anybody know that was going to happen? Right?
No.
Is there-
Well, I'm sure you want to talk conspiracy theories? Now we're gonna fucking get unfiltered and talk about conspiracy theories, because didn't they just put Jeweled Lotus in a set last year?
Yeah, there's no conspiracy theories when it's big business. When we're talking possibilities of hundreds of millions
But
of
every
dollars.
one of those play testers and every one of those big shots has friends that own Star City Games, TCG Player. You're telling me nobody fucking knew? Nobody knew?
Yeah.
So
Nobody
I'm
put
not.
those other cards sold out
Yep.
just before the announcement.
Didn't buy.
Right.
And didn't put buy on the buy list.
Can you guys explain what's going on here? Because I don't understand. I'm not a Magic the Gathering player, so.
Well, Magic the Gathering is like the stock exchange.
Yep.
But it's about cards that are playable. The more playable the card is, the more decks it's in, the more valuable it is, because supply and demand. It is a true market. The thing is that the rules are made by WotC, which is Wizards of the Coast.
The Coast, yeah.
And so when they ban cards, and this is a fairly large ban list, to be honest, they usually ban 1 or 2 cards. 4 cards is a lot, especially these are like used in many, many, many decks. And in Commander, you can only use 1 of every one, except for there's a few.
Okay, so hold on. Let me just interject here. So Magic is usually played with a 60-card deck. You can play 4 of each of any card in that deck. There's a few minor restrictions, but I don't want to get deep in the weeds. So on average, 15 different cards are going to spike up per deck because you can play 4 of them. Commander is a special format played by the old timers like Emmett and I, where you build a 100-card deck and you can only have 1 of each. And basically you have to be very eclectic with your designing of that deck, because you're only going to get a 1 in 100 chance of drawing that card that you want to put in there. And one of the things that, like, the Jeweled Lotus gives you 3 mana, but only for Commander. And they, how many different reprints did they have of it, Emmett? 2 or 3?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah. So here's a card that was worth $300. Am I wrong, Emmett?
Jeweled Lotus?
It came down a little bit, but yeah, it's very expensive. There was versions that were $300. Yes.
Right. So, and then Mana Crypt has been around literally since Alpha or Beta.
Yeah.
And they've made 20 different reprints of Mana Crypt, including like hundreds of dollar versions of Mana Crypt.
Yeah.
So
like the one you're showing right there is like
that's a more modern version.
Yeah, it's a more modern version, but it's borderless, so it's more expensive than the regular.
Right. So it's a variant. It's a variant of a rare card. Okay, that you want to, when you want to bling out your deck and impress everybody you're playing Commander with. That's the one you slap down. So you spend $300 to get that one in your deck so you can impress everyone. They just went through and just annihilate these cards that people have been buying for 25 years, that they have invested their money, because WotC keeps putting them back in circulation. So you're thinking, oh, I'll go ahead and spend some money on this card because WotC still says it's good.
And then they go to 0 unless they're on the list.
Yeah.
None of those are on the list.
Yeah.
There's a reserve list. But so, like, it's a healthier market because there's 6 to 8 million players around the world, right? Where in comics, maybe we have 100,000 readers, maybe.
Yeah.
That's
200 if you're being generous.
So how often do they ban cards like this?
There's usually a ban list every year. There's a couple of cards. Some of them get restricted, which means, in other formats, you're allowed to have 4. You might only be allowed to have 1 in your deck. So it's restricted. So there's a lot of rules that are changing constantly. There will be a lot of pain for this group this group is very painful.
This particular one, especially since they were very actively promoting the 2 of those cards, if not all 4, within the last year. hey, Magic players, you absolutely need this one. Buy more boxes so you can pull one in Modern Masters 3 or whatever. You know,
it was Modern Horizons 3. Yes.
How much do you guys think a comic book store or a store that sells Magic, what percentage does that rank in when you got Bandai, Pokemon, Force of Will, all these stuff? Where does Magic sit?
It depends 100% on your community.
Okay.
So I have, my community is 80% Commander. Commander players make more decks. They change their decks more often. So it's very good. And they can only have one of each card. So when a new card comes out that they need in their deck, they want it. So yeah, they're always spending.
And there's like, unlike comic books, there's really only live selling, eBay, conventions. There's only a handful of places you can really go to get a comic book that you have to get in your collection, right? Your local comic book store, eBay, you know, a couple online sellers, you know, Lone Star, Mile High. There are literally 100 different places where you can commoditize, not just buying, but also selling Magic cards. There's a place called TCG Player, which is kind of like Discogs, or kind of like eBay, but it's more structured.
It's now owned by eBay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's owned by eBay now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, they bought them last year.
Okay, but you know, there's a lot of places. Star City Games is kind of like your Lone Star.
Channel Fireball, which was bought by somebody else. I can't remember.
Yeah. So there's a lot more places where the communities structure around. Like there are people who like, and on top of that, it would be like eBay holding a Comic-Con. TCG Player has a convention, a big giant tournament. Star City Games has multiple big giant tournaments. So it's on a way, in a weirder dimension, it's on a bigger level than even comic books. And when you
the margins on singles is insane.
Insane. But I'm trying to analogize.
It kills comic, like as far as volume.
Do you remember when Cassaday undid Mary Jane and Peter's marriage?
Yes.
And everybody lost their fucking minds. Like, oh my God, why have I been reading this? Also, kind of like when they said Scarlet Spider has been Peter Parker for the last 20 years.
Yeah, people got pissed.
And everything you thought you read for the last 20 years, that's all gone. That's what Magic just did to its longtime players. They just did that to people who have been playing that card and building those decks for 20 years.
Well,
it is definitely a great way to have to keep your comic shop open.
Yep.
There we go.
We have in our store alone, and you know, it's all about allotments in that business because we do everything. We have 4 managers for all 4 divisions. And it's about allotments. We have to go through 10, 12 distributors to even come close to what we need. And so
you never do.
Yeah, exactly. And you never do at the end, right? And so I
sell out on day one.
Yeah, it is
every single set.
A crazy, crazy business that has been in my store for 15 years, and I've never partaken in it. So for listening to you two guys, that is probably why I don't partake in it.
Well, there is.
It's weird. But it's also, you hit on the big thing with the distributors. Pretend you got Lunar,
and there's no money in sealed product.
Right.
When it's all said and done, the profit margin is so small, pays the bill. But other than that,
imagine like a 20% profit margin on comic books. All 3 all 3 distributors of comic books allocate you a different amount every month for every title you want. So you
decide how
sell
many you
50. If you're a comic book retailer and you sell 50 Batman, and Lunar says, "Hey, we're only going to give you 20 Batman this month," and you have to scramble over to Diamond to get the other 30, and Diamond then says, "You know what? You don't have your main Batman account with us. We're only going to give you 10. All right. So now I only have to find 20. Let me go over to Penguin Random House and see if I can get 20. And then all of a sudden, you're just scrambling to get those 50 Batman because you can sell 50 Batman.
Let me call
And they
every
say
small
15.
store that. Let me call every small store and pay them retail
Right.
for it.
And then on top of all of that, imagine if there's a super rare character that's announced in that Batman comic after you've done all that work just to get the 50, and everybody else's customers are now coming to buy up your extra Batmans that you just worked your ass off to get.
And that's magic.
That's magic.
Yeah.
That's Magic the fucking Gathering right there in a
Well,
nutshell.
There
In a
is
nutshell.
a new series that's getting ready to hit. Well, DC's doing a whole new thing, but I would love to hear your thoughts on. Did you see much people be excited about this in Baltimore? Was there much talk about the new Batman, Absolute DC?
There's a lot of talk everywhere about this. It's insane. I
But
bought
good
way
talk?
more than I. Good talk. Yeah,
Okay.
there's people trepidatious. They're trepidatious. However you say that word. They're like, well, I'm going to try it out. But
People
look,
Tuscadero?
it's Scott's return to Batman. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like everybody is going to buy this, and a lot of people are like on the art. They're not sold on the art. I think they would have loved to see Greg back, or somebody else like Jock. But I like the art myself.
So do I.
Hey,
I
man,
really like
sometimes Paul
this.
Simon's got to go play with Lady Bird, Black Moombaza,
Yeah.
and
That's
tell
right.
Art to get a real job.
Yeah.
So I spoke to Scott like 2 years ago when he was putting this together, and it looks exactly like he explained. And if he got to do everything he wanted to do, it's going to be badass. It seems like there was so much excitement for it that DC decided to glom onto it.
Yeah.
Like, originally, I think it was just going to be Scott doing this little world, the Trinity, Superman, Wonder Woman in this chaos world. And DC was like, wow, everybody's really excited about this. So let's go all in. And then
I think you might be overly glossing it. I think they were going to have Scott do this. They were going to basically do a half-assed effort at it. And then they saw the Ultimate stuff roll out from Marvel, and they were like, oh, that's what we have to do.
200,000 pre-orders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, I've done this, going on 42 years, 43 years here pretty soon. There's two titles you can always count on selling. Spider-Man, Batman.
Yes.
Throughout the last 42 years, that's how it's been. You're going to sell. So when you see that number one, you're going from 25 to 75, 100, whatever you're upping. But I think what happens in these titles, because that you still need to do better.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the difference with the Batman title. That's the difference when they announce Snyder and Capullo, right? Look at our numbers. They were crazy.
Yeah.
So you're always then max out with Batman every month. You then sell out, but then you also realize you have to up it 10, 15, 20% because that is, Emmett was talking about, well, he's not really into evergreen and he wants to see different covers and different titles. But I think Batman is a solid buy for any comic book store and any person that buys comics. The person that collects Marvel, if he is going to collect one title from DC, it's most likely going to be Batman.
I'll tell you though, this is how I knew DC was having big troubles. Is I went from selling 10 Batmans to 0.
Wow. Holy
I have no customers picking up, and Zdarsky's doing a good job.
Right.
But there's
Well, what about
nothing
the
that's
other
making
20
me-
Batman titles, Emmett? Surely one of those is selling.
No detectives. I sell 4, and when I say 4, I don't mean 4 titles. I mean 4 books. I sell 1 Poison Ivy. I sell 1 Green Lantern War Journal. I sell 1 Wonder Woman, and I sell 1 Birds of Prey.
So when did you? I'm going to ask you a question here. When did you start buying comics?
For myself or for a store?
For yourself.
1970 something. 70.
All right. Did you grow up as a Marvel kid?
No.
No.
DC fanboy. Yeah. Yeah.
Never
Swamp
mind.
Thing
My
and Sergeant
analogy.
Rock.
Yep, you just blew my analogy away. Never mind.
They have no continuity. I don't know if you've been reading. Well, you guys aren't buying new books, right?
I buy new books. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Their continuity is very bad.
Right.
I would blame that probably on the editors. That's really their job in comics. I think the editors think they're book editors and they're trying to like, oh, is your story like trying to make story suggestions and trying to make, arc suggestions instead of like, oh, Batman would never say that, or Superman would never say that, or this villain would never do that. The continuity is all over the place. The voice of Batman is all over the place, from detective to Batman. At least with Chip on there, Batman is solid, right? Batman is Batman. But Zdarsky's a really great writer. They really haven't, guys are having trouble, even though they're getting percentage of guys they invent. It's so infinitesimal.
Right.
Right. Do you really want to give them your best character because you're getting like a 1%? If sometime down the road they make a movie, you're going to get 1% of your best idea. Yep. I just don't think they're getting those ideas again because they're not getting paid.
Well, then look, when you waste all the money they wasted on Bendis, what do you get?
Listen, look, Bendis is not a waste. Here's the thing with the problem people have with Bendis. When they're reading his books, it's not super exciting, but all of his stuff is very transferable. All of his stuff ends up in the movies.
Right.
Everybody hated Miles Morales. Everybody hated like a lot of his stuff.
Oh no, I'm talking Bendis at DC. I'm talking about Bendis at DC. Yeah. No, Bendis at Marvel was a gold machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't started to transition his stuff.
Yeah, but it's been seven years since they brought him over for action, wasn't it? 6 years?
Yeah, but it took 8 years for Walking Dead to get somewhere. And
no,
DC
it wasn't. 3 years. Walking Dead was a big giant hit.
Oh, in comics, but it wasn't until the show didn't get on for 8 years. It was 8 years from start to on, I believe, till it was on air.
So let me ask you guys this question. I'll ask both this question. So when I was with Nordstrom, if Nike socks weren't selling, I would get a call from the Nike sock rep saying, "Hey, what's going on? What can we do to help you sell more Nike socks?" Mm-hmm. Emmett, let me ask you something. When your orders went from 10 down to 0, did anybody contact you to say why did that happen?
No, not only did they not contact me, they cut my rate to 35% because I didn't buy enough books. I'm like, oh, you're going to make garbage and then charge me for you making garbage. So if you don't sell a certain amount, if you don't buy a certain amount of books, they cut you from 50% to 35%. So when I have a 50% off sale, I take a 15% hit on every DC book that gets bought.
Right. And it's evidence when you go to these conventions. I was just talking about how I went to a convention. I bought $4,000 books. I probably shouldn't be saying this because everybody buys from me. They're like, wait a minute, I paid $10 for that book and you only paid $1. But anyways, 4,000 books.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Nick Barrucci about this. Out of the 4,000 books, 1,200 books were Thundercats. 1 in 25s, 1 in 50s, 1 in 75s, Virgin covers, right? So when you're talking about the big hit of the 15%, you got guys taking big hits of 75%, 80%, just saying, get out of my space.
Right. Well, 100%. And I do the same thing that you did. I don't buy 4,000, but I buy long boxes. And I'm telling you, a lot of those long boxes are full of DC.
Yeah.
Where they're buying multiple hundreds to get the 1 in 50s and the 1 in 100s. Well, DC's doing 1 in 50s mostly, but getting 2 1 in 50s and stuff. And those books, those boxes are just full of DC books. $5.99 for $1, and then we're getting the dealer price.
Right, exactly.
A long box for $100.
I'm paying. Oh no, I'm paying $40.
Yeah.
For a long box.
There you go.
I don't pay more than $40 for a long box.
Well,
I told you, Jesse, you're overpaying.
Whatever. You guys. What?
So
I told you, standard buy price is $40 a long, Jesse.
Yeah.
So DC
I mean,
just
I paid
announced.
$30.
DC has announced that they're dropping their minimum from their retailer exclusive variants from 3,000 to 1,000, which shows exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
You know,
They gotta get the money from the suckers.
So this has been going on for a while.
And this game is going away.
Yeah.
There's a few guys like Jesse and Bird Sit. There's a few guys that do exclusives really well.
Yeah.
They'll continue to do exclusives. A lot of these guys like Epic, they are going to go away.
Yeah.
Because their books don't maintain their value.
Right,
They
but
don't
here's the
maintain
thing,
their value.
though. But Emmett, by taking the 3,000 threshold and dropping it to 1,000, they're hoping to get more of that
guys
lower
to get
tier hustler to come in and make up for the retailers that said, I won't do another DC variant because I've lost money on the last 3 or 4.
Right.
And how many can you lose money on before
you start making fake books?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing with exclusives is the notion that the three of us have worked our butts off. We've done what you had to do. When we were in the exclusive game, we deserved it. We earned it. And now anybody can do it. So Emmett said a very simple thing here. How many people can do exclusives before they're out of the game? Most of these guys can only do 1 or 2 bad exclusives and they're gone.
They're gone.
Yep.
And what happens is it floods the market with a horrible book, a horrible brand that is now matched up against your brand. So you're trying to get 20. This brand is closing out at $3.99.
Yeah.
That's the
just
problem.
to get their money back.
Well,
Just
where DC really shot themselves in the foot was, and it was on multiple levels, was Batman 50, the wedding of the century, and they got all of these retailers. There was over 100 retailers that all brought in to do 3,000 of, and they got, some of them do 4,500 because they did the 3,000 plus like the black and white variation of it. You know, so, and then the day before release, one of the DC marketing guys leaks the story that Batman's not really getting married and torpedoes the entire fucking project, the scam, really.
Yeah.
You know, a 500,000 copies down the fucking drain.
Yeah, I mean, look at the ASM we did. We had to do 8,000 copies, right? That's a lot of freaking copies at $3 each, right? And then if you're with Marvel, we know the game, hey, damage stuff, you're stuck with that stuff, right?
Yep.
So if you play this exclusive game and you start going with these companies that have damaged books, the quality is not just as good. They're selling to Jeff because Jeff has a check that's unclear. That's what hurts the game more than anything else. So they need to get in and they can reduce this down to $250 if they wanted to, right? And they can get in the game like everybody else, but they have to get quality, qualified people. That's the game changer.
But Jesse, you talk about it all the
100%.
time.
Yeah.
You talk about it all the time. And I tried to get us into this discussion a week or two ago when we were talking about innovation. I don't think this industry is innovating the way they need to be. Right now, Jesse talks every week about what he bought at Ollie's. You know, the amount of trade paperbacks that are being dumped at Ollie's is
and not giving me the opportunity.
Amen.
Right,
Amen.
It's a boon for Jesse because he's going in there scooping them all up. But
Well, they just opened one. They just opened one a block away from me. Don't think I'm not going to go in there.
No. But
What's your address? I want your address.
If they're selling it to Ollie's, they should be offering us those books.
Right. At that rate, if Ollie's can sell a $19.99 book for $3, how much are they selling it to?
When was the last time Marvel had a dollar sale or with a BOGO? It's been years.
Not now that they've moved. You can get that still at Diamond.
Yeah. But
you
when you go to Ollie's and all of a sudden you're getting emails of, hey, by the way, that $20 book is $3 and you're getting 40% off.
Yeah.
Right. So the notion is.
Oh, you one of the Ollie's Army also? You got your
What am I? I am a
probably a
3-star general. I am a 3-star general, the highest ranking you can get. Anyways, And this is what comics should be. What we're talking about.
Here's your screenshot
of comics. That is the part that I think is missed the most. Is having that fun part. But when we do look at Ollie's, and I thank everybody for stopping me saying Ollie's for the last year. But when we look at those situations and we don't get those opportunities, and they then get more money from us, right? Maybe it's $1 more. Why wouldn't you go to us first and then go to them?
Exactly.
But they don't do that.
But
Jesse,
they don't-
what you just said right there, Jesse, is the exact same thing that I heard from KRS Comics in San Diego. They said the exact same thing, that when they got, not just from KRS Comics, from other, KRS Comics was the only one that said, hey, you can talk about this. But there was other, retailers that said the exact same thing. Hey, we want to talk to our Marvel and DC reps, and we want to talk to them about, sell it to us at if you could sell it to us for $1 more than you sell it, but sell it to us. We want it. Drop the exclusive number down. You can charge us a little bit more, but drop it down so we don't have to put as much of ourselves out there, buying 3,000 copies than buying 1,000 copies.
Right.
They're spreading people thin.
Comics will change when they figure how to get rid of comic shops.
Yep.
Because they hate us.
Yeah.
They are
DC
begrudging
proved that.
us.
DC proved that.
DC has no back order lists.
Yeah.
But over than like last week's or the weeks before. You can go on Lunar and type it in.
But Discount Comic Book Service has all the back issues you need, Emmett.
Yep.
Just keep giving Lunar all of your wholesale money and then have your customers buy all the back issues from Discount Comic Book Service. What do you need it for? Up your orders if you want back issues.
Right.
And this is what I said to every fucking retailer when they announced that plan. This is the dumbest thing, is to put money in your direct competitor's pocket.
Exactly.
Man. Yeah, but I think you gotta go back here a little bit. How much of us bitched, which is maybe minus Dennis, saying there's only one person selling comics, right? And so you gotta go both ways here. You just can't say, oh, we're the MB5. It just happened to go to the wrong two people, technically.
They chose those people, so it wasn't technically
Who chose those people? Who chose those people?
DC.
No,
DC, Warner Brothers.
No, DC gave Diamond the opportunity to stay, and Steve made that decision that he wasn't going to compete. And his exact words were, you can go wherever you want, you'll be back to us. So there was a choice for Diamond to stay. They are the ones that should take the blame for not doing that. Not just.
And I really think that, hopefully this doesn't get me in trouble with Diamond. I don't think it really was the cost, the who's getting how much percentage on the book. I think it was how much are we paying for storage at the warehouses.
Yep.
And who's counting the books? What book, like how many pallets? Who knows what's on that fucking pallet?
Yeah.
And you're charging me, and that charge.
And I heard that from almost every one of my publisher buddies was there were far too many discrepancies in the accounting. One publisher who I won't mention because they said I can never mention it was handed a bill by the end of the year for the storage of, say, 100 pallets. And they were like, okay, we're going to hire a third-party auditing company to come in. Just let them go through and log all those pallets. And when they got there were literally the majority of the pallets were missing. And they were trying to charge them for the storage of those pallets. Yeah. And they said...
Big companies do that all the time.
Yeah.
Phone companies with big companies, you close out lines. If you don't monitor them and make sure that they're not charging for those lines, they'll continue to charge you forever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure. But
lines that aren't there.
Right. The one thing, and Emmett can probably confirm this, or maybe it's the opposite, is one of the things that I looked at, the challenges of leaving Diamond. Listen, I'm a big Jeppy fan before I'm a Diamond
me
fan.
Too.
Yeah,
I love Steve and Josh.
Yeah. Diamond, cool. But I am a very big supporter of the Jeppies. But when I looked and I started to get the Lunar packages and I started getting the Penguin packages, and I would say to Dave, my manager, hey, how many damages do we have? Oh, we didn't have any damages.
Yeah.
Right. Or we had one damage. They already took care of it.
Yeah.
That was the difference for me.
Yeah. Well, and 7 years ago, I just shared the post is when Diamond called me into their offices. And I thought we were going to discuss all of the new ways that I think they should pack this stuff and get it to me safely. We had gone round and round week after week for so long. And they literally basically read me the riot act and said, you better get your percentage damage in line with what we think the percentage damage is. You're the only one complaining about this, or we're going to have to decide whether or not we're going to keep doing business with you. And I was like, oh, that's what you think's happened here? Oh, no, sorry. You just made me double down. And that's when I dropped the box on their stage during their presentation. That's when I fucking rallied all the people. I went to their Facebook page and found what their customer service ratings were. I found what their employees were saying about them. And all of a sudden, they still never fixed the damages. They
But
just
remember their answer. So I'll be real quick on this. Dennis comes up and again, goes to the microphone like everybody else at the whole summit. Everybody walks to the microphone, gets in line. Dennis just stands up at the table, walks over to the dais, right? Dais.
Yeah.
Puts it in front of Fletcher, whoever he puts it in front of, explains all the damages. I actually have his quote in my notes. After he explains everything, he says, well, what's your point?
Yeah.
There you go.
And meanwhile, the entire room, they just spent the day before this telling me nobody else is complaining about this, Dennis. You're the biggest complainer and only complainer. I dropped that box on there. It was an applause from across the room for me, who most of them hated. And they were like, no, this guy is right. And I'm just sitting there going,
Have you gone
the only one.
They have been a lot better now. They have been a lot better.
Yeah, recently, yeah. Have you been to summits, Emmett?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
I was one in Vegas and I'm in Baltimore, and I was sad that they put it out in San Diego this year. I'm like, they got to be bleeding money, and they're deciding to do it in San Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a day back in the day where you would have 12, 13, 1,400 people in that room. Yeah. And to go into these rooms, me and Dennis were at the luncheon, and to see maybe 60 stores there in a room seating for 400. So there is this.
The largest I've been at was 500.
Yeah.
That was Vegas 19.
Yeah, was that before COVID?
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah, so the picture has changed, and I think at the end of the day, if you walked into, remember the talk used to be, if you walked into, you go to someone, like, I walked into the store, 60% of his store was Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh. We don't even say that anymore, right? Because that's common now to have comics in some stores be the smaller percentage of items in the store. I have an 8,000 square foot store that only 2,500 square feet is comics now.
Yeah.
I mean, I have 3,000 square feet, but I have 12 foot ceilings, and it is all the way up. It's getting crazy.
I'll tell you a quick story, and I know we got to get out of here soon. So the first time I ever went to Mile High, I meet Chuck, and I talk to Chuck, hey, Chuck, and I'm just opening up the store and all that. But I see this Porky the Pig on the very top of his freaking 40-foot ceiling, right? And I go, hey, I want that Porky Pig. Okay, cool. So about 20 minutes goes by, and he walks by, and he goes, how is that book? I go, well, it's still up there. I'm waiting for someone to come and help me. He goes, oh, no, the ladder's right over there. So that was my first buy, my first experience. I'm like, you want me to go up this freaking ladder to get my Porky the Pig book?
I doubt it was an OSHA approved ladder either. It was
it was one of those side step.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And to get really off topic, I went to this grocery store today, and they wanted 50 cents a bag. 50 cents a bag. And they charged me, which I didn't know till I got my receipt, 25 cents for using their cart.
Oh yeah, but you get 25 cents back if you return it though.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. So
Okay,
I lost
so
25 cents. That is freaking crazy.
No,
It's to keep the
25
homeless
cents
from
in.
stealing.
Right. So then when you come back, you take your cart, you bring it back to where you got the cart.
Stop
and you
using
plug that
common
back in, and it
sense. I was
spits
trying to
the
make a point. You
Yeah.
just
sorry.
ruined the common sense part.
Aldi's does it.
Well,
Aldi's does it.
Before we call it a night, there's a couple things that I want to mention that I saw this week that is super cool. First, we talked about him a little bit earlier. That is Brian Pulido and Coffin Comics. October 4th, you guys.
Yeah.
Todd McFarlane, Lady Death cover. You got it coming.
Shit.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is a big deal. October 4th. Go to Coffin Comics website to find out more. Absolutely amazing. Shout out to Brian Pulido and Francesca.
And the amazing thing about this is Todd McFarlane's office is literally within 5 miles of Brian Pulido's office. So being in Arizona for the last 15 years, we have said, why hasn't this happened? So this is freaking amazing.
$25. This is the price. It's printed to order. So there's only going to be so many copies that are ordered if in that 80 hours of sale time. So very smart on Coffin Comics to do that, do the Tops Now model. And it'll still be collectible. I don't think they're gonna sell 3,000, 5,000 copies of this. They could, but
will Todd sign it? Will Todd sign it at signings?
I'm sure he will.
I'm sure he will.
I'm
yeah.
sure he will.
Yeah. So
that's huge.
Oh yeah, serial numbered too, you guys. That's the big part about this.
Yeah, everything he does is legacy numbered. So this is just a project. When I saw this, kind of thought, nah, this is probably a fake post. There's no way. But I think this is, and I will say this, and I will continue to say this probably for the next 15 years, the 90 guys are the it.
Yeah.
If we look back at what these 90 guys have done and how the top people in this comic book industry are all from the 90s right now.
From almost exactly 30 to 35 years ago within that little window.
Yep. Tucci, Liefeld, Brian Pulido,
McFarlane,
Silvestri.
Look at all these guys.
McFarlane,
Michaels. I mean, you could
Jim Lee.
You
just go down this list of people that have been through the great
J.
times,
Scott Campbell,
and through the bad times, right?
Yep.
And now they're back. We're still. I know Emmett was saying good girl stuff, but look at the bad girl stuff. Look at the cheesecake stuff. Look at the bondage stuff. Look at the modern girl. Look at the strong woman. It's still all very powerful in the comic book industry.
It's been around forever.
Yep.
Well, something that's very interesting, the other thing I want to mention is a guy who didn't take off in comics until his 40s, and that being Mark Spears. Did you guys see this? The Mark Spears Mark Spears cover for his monster stuff is now the #1 book on the Cover Price Hot 10 when it released last week through Keen Spot. It was on the House of Stein list at number 8, at number 9, and now it's jumped up to number 1 on that.
Can somebody explain Keen Spot to me?
So King Spot is a kind of funny
They've been
title.
around a while.
They've done a lot of, they did AOC. They've done some crazy, really titles, but I don't even know where you, Emmett, who is that? Is that Penguin or is that Lunar?
Keen Spot, they've been around a while. I don't think they have any affiliation to. I think they're just a small publisher, but they're tied to somebody, and I don't know who it is.
Okay. We need to do some research. Chat, let us know.
Well,
They did Slapshot, which is like at least 5 or 6, and that had an option to it for a while for a cartoon, and that had a little heat for a bit. But yeah, I didn't get this monster cover for whatever reason. I got I don't know if that's like a 1 in 50 or a 1 in 25.
I don't think it was I don't know if it was a ratio. I think what happened is I think it might have. I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but here's what I will say. I did talk to Mark about this. He says it's Keenspot's best-selling book by a huge amount in their 20-something year history. No advertising, no marketing, not a penny was spent on any of that. So they're going. It's the first book that Keenspot has ever done a second printing on. They're going to do a second printing on it. It had 11,000 over 11,000 pre-orders, I think. Absolutely amazing. And here's the best part. Mark told me that he went to every single publisher with this book. This book was initially a Kickstarter. I've been talking about it for a while. I was a big proponent of the Kickstarter. I did get my Kickstarter in about a month ago. Absolutely beautiful. The Kickstarter did so well that Mark decided, hey, I'm going to go try and take this to the publishers. Every other publisher passed on it, and other than Keenspot, and it's their biggest book in their 20-year history. So shout out to Mark Spears.
Seeing this cover, that's insane.
Oh yeah,
that was amazing.
It's very interesting because the comic book industry does something. Leave that page up, Brian, because I'm going to bring up something. So the comic book industry does something completely different than any other industry I know. What is number 2?
It's the Ghost Spider. Ghost Rider number 19 from a couple of years ago. This is when they did these special covers where all the characters had sidekicks, and they've announced that these sidekick characters are going to be the new Champions team that they're publishing in January.
If you remember San Diego, that's what I said.
Yeah,
was that a racial book? Was that a variant? What was it?
It was a open order variant, I believe, and this character is one of the new characters called Phantasma. And she's going to be part of that team. This is her first appearance, but she only appeared on the cover. Her first appearance in the inside of the actual book was Black Panther number 5 around the same time period.
So what do you think the print run was on that book?
Oh, I don't know.
20,000?
30,000.
What do you think the print run on
No way,
that?
I don't think so.
Ghost Rider during the Cosmic Ghost Rider period when
that wasn't during the Cosmic Ghost Rider period.
It's not? It looks like the Cosmic Ghost Rider.
No. I don't think so. Let's take a look
2
here.
years after Cosmic Ghost Rider.
Hold on here. Let's take a look here.
Yeah,
So it's this is in 2023, I think, to celebrate Hispanic Latin.
So that's a newer one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't know what the print run is, but what do you think that print run was on the Venom number 3?
We've talked about that this is the third print. Yeah, third print.
Yeah, but it was still probably only 10 or 15,000.
Oh, way less than that.
Printing.
I want to say it was like 8 or something like that.
Okay.
Chat will remember. I'm not good with numbers.
So my question is, because I'm not familiar with cover price, don't know how they do this or not. So they're making this number 1. Why?
Based on secondary market sales. So they're hooked up with, they get through whatever deal they've worked out and their the program that they've built, they get information from sold eBay sales.
Okay.
Yeah, so Jesse, cover price, I can tell you hands down, has the best metrics I've ever seen in the comic book industry since what was the big thing that we used to always use? Not Comixology. Oh God, what was the website we used to always go to get the print runs? Comic-Con. Yeah, which has been irrelevant since DC left.
Right.
So that's been irrelevant for 4 years.
So this book is
these guys are getting the numbers that Comic-Con didn't even get.
Right.
Yeah.
They're getting actual sales numbers through platforms.
It's
Right.
up
Yeah,
44%.
but only eBay, right? They're only using eBay?
I think that they get from other platforms too, but eBay's the biggest outlier, right?
Yes,
Because
sure,
that's where,
exactly.
yeah.
77,000
question
can't be
is-
wrong.
So I'm going to ask you a layman's question here. So it's not that 11,000 copies sold at pre-order. It's based on what they see that sold on eBay.
Secondary
and they're
market
basing
sales.
it on the secondary market, they're basing it on a percentage of sales, not on a percentage of turn rates on the original run.
No. And this is what we need to do. We need to get Matt and John on the show one of these days to have them break this down. They'd be more than welcome to come on. So.
Yeah, because I would be very interested in, okay, cool. Because if you came to me and said, this is the number one seller, I would say, okay, out of the 11,000, how many actually sold?
Which is crazy, too. If you go back to that main screen again, the third book on there was a book that I had a 9.8 sitting in my my warehouse. And I was like, oh, shit, finally, this thing came back around. So I put it up there. And when I was going through to get the comps, I'm like, oh, Jesus, everybody's dumping this book. But they weren't dumping it. They were selling it because Null showed up in the new Venom trailer that dropped last week.
Right.
So this is the numbers.
Book.
Here's the numbers they've got. So the reason why this is up there, it's got 42 units sold last week, right? With an average sale of, what is it? 20, it was 20 something. I can't remember what it was. And it says that it's
average sale was 20.
Yeah. No,
and
30. Top weekly
slab
sales
was 0 because nobody has them slabbed yet.
Yeah.
And then,
here we go.
So
So average sale is $22.
I want to get this straight. So they made 11,000.
Total books, not of that cover. Total.
Oh, okay.
Total of all these covers. These are all number one.
Okay.
So I don't know how many total there are of that book.
Okay.
Now that book, it could have something different to it, but
it's clearly a banger. I mean, it's just fucking amazing.
Oh yeah, I get that. Because my point I'm going to go to here, you got a book that McFarlane and Polidor then do, right? That is LTD on orders, right? So they sell 5,000, they mix sell 5,000, right? That's a complete 100% sellout.
Yeah.
Sell through. So wouldn't that more likely be a number one seller than a book that only sold?
What if we had an aggregator who took every one of the 5 channels that comic books are sold through and aggregated all 5
But you wouldn't have to do that. You wouldn't have to do that.
I think they also take into consideration how much over the cover price it sells for.
Okay.
Because my buddy has 175,000 items online through 6 or 7 different platforms. And when we talk about what books sell, you'd be bored with the books that sell in the high numbers. You'd be like, that book doesn't excite me.
I
There's
did
a lot
that.
of stuff that just sells all the time, every day. And they're boring books, but like people who are not in comics, who buy a comic, buy this book.
Yeah.
Right.
Like a Scooby-Doo 1 or
It's like when I showed you my Amazon sales, Brian.
yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So they're a yawn. They don't create any excitement. They don't have a reason to go to a website and check it every day.
And they're one-offs. A lot of times they're one-offs.
Yeah.
Right.
What's in the number one place today? It's like Key Collector and like all of them. I get it. It's a business model and they're being very successful at it. But
Right.
those books are not the number one sellers. But if we put up what the number one sellers were, everybody would be like, comics are boring.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No one wants to see that Turok number one is my number one selling book this year, right? I mean, it's funny to think about it. I've sold about 2,200 copies now in 6 months, right? Because no one else can sell them, so I'm buying 50 at a time. But obviously, I get it. I was just wanting to inquire on that. So very cool.
Yeah. Well, let's get him on the show because I absolutely would love to find out.
Yeah, the reason why I wanted to meet up with Overstreet Access at the con was to tell them, I like your product. You have no reason to go there every day.
Right.
That's why you don't have any users. That's why you're not getting, like, they're going to hook up sellers and users and not charge anything. You won't be able to buy through the site, but the people can see who has the books and they can actually contact you and buy the book from you.
Yep.
Which they're not going to get any money, and you'll get all the money, and you won't have to give it to eBay or anybody else. That's great. but that only is good for sellers. Why are buyers going to your site?
Right. Well, the question I have for Emmett is, let me ask you this. And I don't want to get into this because I know a lot of influencers will then get mad when I say this. You're one of the few experiencers who actually owns a comic book store, that actually has a YouTube channel, that has a voice, that gets your voice out there. Why is there not more store owners that do this at your level, at your numbers, right? You got a lot of people that get 100 views, 33 views, whatever. We know who that is. I think that's the first gig I've ever got on that person. Anyways, why is there something that, because I always think
threw it in the
about
chat, by the way.
Yeah, I always think about it. I'm like, listen, I got 50,000 people following me here. My Google page just hit 150 million. But I always hesitate to do a YouTube channel because I may use this word, but this isn't the word. I'm very hesitant on saying stuff. Why did you choose to do that? And what barrier did you get past to say, you know what, I am a store owner and I'm going to be a voice?
So I've been doing YouTube for 8 years. And with that very low number, and then YouTube dropped it to 500, and I said, I got to get to 500. So I did everything. Like when people would come in, I'd say 10% off if you go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. And those people would subscribe, and 2 days later, they'd unsubscribe. And we finally got to 500. And I had somebody come in and go, none of your books are like, they really poo-pooed my story because I didn't have any plastic coffins on my wall, right? And I said, well, like, listen, we don't have anybody watching anyway. So I'm just going to go through and make like 6 videos and go through the whole, what I think is CGC and the whole grading process pretty much, but mostly CGC, and take people through the stuff that was going
Emmett,
on that was already
you're
out
saying
there.
you had to be negative and trash on somebody to get popularity?
Yeah, but I did it with somebody who was not providing a service that they were charging a lot of money for.
You saw what I did there, right?
I do.
Yeah,
I do, but I wasn't trashing on people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm trashing on the corporation that they've built now. There's no way it's sustainable. That business is not sustainable. There's only so much books to grade. And especially now that you have 4 different grading companies. One very tiny, one middle, 3.5. So there's a lot of books out there, but there's a lot of books that shouldn't be graded. What do they do when they run out? They invent 9.9, 10.0, so the books can be taken out. Hey, we'll reholder your books from CBCS if you send them to us. And then the other companies, if you send their books. If CGC crashes because of all the problems they have, and everybody's like, oh, it never happens. Go into a Sears store for me. Another company will eat your lunch. It doesn't matter how much money backing you have.
Craftsman, people don't understand this. Craftsman was the #1 brand in tools in the world.
Yeah. And Sears,
it's nothing now.
Nothing. Well, it's owned by somebody else now, but Sears doesn't make it. Sears wasn't Sears after Kmart bought Sears, because Kmart had assets and properties. And when they shrunk their business, they sold all their properties, took all that cash, and bought Sears.
Yep.
And they didn't know how to run Sears any better than Sears. Sears was Amazon. You could get a house, and now you can buy a house from Amazon, because they just took the Sears model and put it on the internet. And Sears just missed that whole boat. But anyway, that's what I'm saying, is that everybody's like, oh, CGC is the #1. Yeah, but when like these companies get figured out that they're riding CGC's coattails by only showing the sales from CGC, and that's what their website runs on, but everybody's trying to do their numbers from there, whether it's a CGC book or not, and people are like, oh, well, that's a CGC number. It's insanity.
Well, it was also,
it will come crashing down.
It was kind of a pyramid scheme, because CGC was at the top of it. Then they had all of these facilitators and middlemen who only use CGC. And then they got all of these creators that would only use CGC. Then they got the conventions to ban all competition.
Yep.
like CBCS from coming into that space. And now you've got this entire thing, and any part of that pillar that starts to crumble, it just crumbles upwards. And especially if the top is the biggest flaw in the entire system.
Yeah. And then, listen, a huge auction company that, like, they are putting their integrity on the line by backing this other company. If you buy a book from that auction company and they say, well, it's been guaranteed by this company, and we take their guarantee, and then you find out not so much.
Yeah.
That the book, something's wrong with the book, or it's not really the book that they said it was. It's not really the first appearance, or something like that.
One
Auction
banana
houses-
peel screws the entire thing up.
Oh man. And then that'll all start falling down when they start moving to somebody else.
Well, these guarantees mean nothing. They mean nothing. PSA, CGC, CBCS, all of it. It means their guarantees mean absolute. There's nothing behind it other than the market decides, and that's
so,
it.
Right.
It's like the line in Tommy Boy. You guys remember Tommy Boy, Chris Farley?
Yeah.
If I shit in a box and threw a guarantee on it, would you buy it from me then? So yeah, it's it's kind of silly and ridiculous, but I think it's not for. What we'll see when the two big guys that own all that, Vanguard and Blackstone, if they start selling off.
Well, they don't want to deal with
know that it's
shit.
It's ending.
Think about, you own that company. You're Jay-Z and you own that company.
Jay-Z don't own that company.
Which one?
He owns BlackRock.
No, he owns some money in BlackRock. He owns,
but the point is
well, BlackRock only owns 3%. They only own 3% of that. Yeah.
For sake of the argument, John Smith owns a big chunk of BlackRock, and they own this thing called CGC. And they see the first case come through for Swapgate, and then they find the second one for Reholdergate. Then they get the third one for the $5 million defamation suit. Then they get this Banana Gate, and then they're like, why are we doing this again?
And all those problems.
Why are we fucking around with these idiots?
But all those problems come from the pressure of those.
Yes.
You gotta produce.
Yeah.
And it's not the same every year. You got to do better every single quarter.
Yep. If you're not making more than you did the last quarter, it's a failure, which is garbage.
And if Baltimore Comic-Con doesn't have walls of slabs all around it and a line wrapped around the booth, and they got to run back over there and go, of course we're CGC. We totally bought this year.
I saw more people at the Comics Link table.
Yeah.
Dropping their books off at Comic Link.
Yep.
So my question.
Shout out to Steve Borach. Shout out.
So that shot off your YouTube page, the whole CGC thing that you did.
Okay.
Yeah, I got 33. Now I'm at 33,000.
It wasn't the in-depth interview with me. What?
No, sadly, though they've all gotten better, more views because people are starting to stay around. It is sort of. I don't want to say it because, like, I am a flawed human being because I'm a human being, but I have a very weird code. I will lose money before I give up my integrity.
Right. Sure.
I will not. People are like, well, I'm not a comic snob. I'd never tell somebody not to.
That's not a weird code, Emmett. That's a good code. That's not a weird code. That's a good code.
Well, but I also won't carry stuff even if it'll make me money.
Yeah. That's why we get along, Emmett. Even when we're disagreeing, we get along.
Yeah.
Because there is way more to business than making money.
Right.
It's building friendships. It's building relationships.
Absolutely.
It's having people to lean on and to lean on you. It is the entire package, and none of that revolves around a dollar bill.
Yeah. Comics made me this way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so I'm getting a lot of feedback from people that
we talked about
that
this
are
earlier.
now going, look, I'd stopped reading comics forever, and I found your video, and I went out and bought a book.
Yeah.
Right. Well, my whole point is, are you successful because you are a comic book store owner or you're in the comic book industry? Let's just say you're in the comic book industry versus a lot of people that aren't. Do you get more? What you talk about, is it backed more?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I actually think it's because I'm so passionate about it. I think that's if I was passionate about something else, I think I could get a following on YouTube for cattle. If I was real passionate about cattle. I grew up in a storytelling family. That's why when I found comics, I got like really attached to them because the way they told stories. We used to sit around. I'm an Irish Catholic family, and everybody got to tell a story. And once you were old enough,
Right? Sure.
a lot of seen and not heard for a while, but you got to learn how to tell a story, right?
Yeah.
So I think storytellers, wars are started and won by poets and singers, storytellers. They're the people that actually create the situation and move people. And the naysayers of like, it'll never come back. When I sat down and Comics Pro told me we're giving up on kids, that's going to be Scholastic's and manga. We're going to get them later. You're not going to get them later. You have to get back. Human beings are animals. We forget that. We like to think of ourselves as so much above. We are trainable. If you train us to read manga, we're going to read manga, and then that's what we're going to read. We're not going to switch up later on. Some small few will, but they got to market back to kids. They got to bring cartoons back. They got to find a way to get them on games. Marvel Snap, I think, was a great idea. I know so many people playing Marvel Snap. It was like, it's a stupid game on a phone.
My son's addicted to it.
And everybody's like, oh, this character, I wonder what they do. And then if you announce a book, like a new book with this character that like is the hot character on the, if they were smart, they would be like, oh, this month this character is free and he has all these awesome powers.
The problem is they're not.
They're not smart. Come right out.
Yeah.
They don't know how to synergize anymore.
I'm one of the biggest surprises that I've had since I started doing content and I've gotten closer and closer to the industry is how many people that are part of the industry or that know the industry tell me Marvel and DC don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't talk to each other. They
don't talk to the people who
within
are
the community. In the trenches. The divisions within the different groups don't talk to each other within the same company. They just don't know what they're doing, and it's been across the board that I've heard that.
They're talent scouts.
Yeah,
their talent scouts are at conventions, going to dinners and drinking with people, and that's how they're talent scout. Listen, there's plenty of guys who are not good at conventions, who don't like them because that's just who they are. They don't like big crowds, and they're phenomenal writers or they're phenomenal artists. Where is Vertigo? Like, wherever the lady is who ran Vertigo, and her name escapes
Karen Kahn, Jeanette Kahn.
Berger.
Karen Berger and Jeanette Kahn.
Yeah. Go find those people because they knew how to find real talent. And a lot of the independents find real talent. But then a lot of the new independents abuse the new talent by keeping their IP, by not
forgetting to pay them.
Forgetting to pay them. Their counting is very sketchy on how much you're owed on the sales, like all that. But they find them, and then those guys, they leave comics because the famous saying that is attributed to Kirby: "Comics will break your heart." It's that because the corporations aren't playing fair.
Yeah,
and it's so easy to go and go, "Hey, I like this guy. Come and write for us. We're friends. I like you."
One of the things, the disconnect, I think, exists, and it's going to be fairly controversial. We grew up hearing Batman, billionaire playboy, realize that his money can't bring his parents back, and crime is still creating new orphans. He spends his money and his ability and his talent fighting crime.
Yeah.
Spider-Man realizes, I want money to buy this car. This car is going to make me popular with the ladies, and that costs him his uncle. And he doesn't realize that, that these are the moral codes that built into people like the four of us You know, Larry Hama, just with his G.I. Joe, influenced thousands of veterans of this country to the point where he goes to a convention, he comes home with 10 challenge coins from people that he inspired patriotism. You know, is that keeping the world safe right now? Maybe. Well, maybe not. You know, all of these things are important. And I can't tell you a single story from the 20 years I've owned a store that chimes in my brain that does that today.
Yeah, but that's generational. You're talking about a generation gap. There's a huge generation gap. How old are you, Brian?
Just turned 44.
Just turned 44. So you got a generation gap. I would say 35 and up is still kind of in what you just talked about, but 34 and down, they're not coached in any way to understand what you just said.
We have ways to get into them. Starboy presents, you know, that comic book.
Again, those publishers don't know what they're doing, man. They're fucking just throwing. They're throwing darts at balloons.
How you capitalize on that. They did nothing to follow that up again.
Yeah.
The number one thing that has gone away in the like, as an old man screaming at the void. No, sacrifice isn't a virtue anymore.
Yeah, back to what we brought you on with, and your recent video, and you talking exactly about this.
Yeah. So that was a big thing in my family growing up. It's like, you have to give something up because we need this thing over here. And I can tell you, everybody I run into is like, no, it's all cake and eat it too. There's no, I'll have to do without this to get this. You could just stand at Starbucks and watch people driving a jalopy that barely makes it through the line, and they're buying a $7 cup of coffee with a car that isn't inspected.
Yeah.
That you can't work on yourself. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that they don't know. They don't know how to do. They don't know how to do that because they would have to sacrifice something else to get their hands dirty to do. You know, I was at a very young age. We all had to go to work and give all of our money back to our parents. Did I hate it? Yes. Did it make me a better person? I think so.
Oh yeah.
So
by far, my dad used to do a simple thing. I'm gonna jump on that one. I remember walking in and telling my dad, I just lettered in wrestling. I want to get a wrestling jacket. He goes, fantastic. How much does that jacket cost? $100. Fantastic. He pulls out his calculator. All right, you got to work 17.5 hours to get that $190. Right? That's the difference of generational stuff as far as working, providing for the family that you're with, or working for your money to get XYZ.
Yeah. It's a weird world.
Yeah. It is. And then look, a lot of good things happen through sacrifice. I mean, when you're talking about veterans, those guys sacrificed their lives so that we have the things that we have in the country we have. Sometimes
and thank you
good,
for your service.
bad.
You're a veteran yourself, so thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you. It's always weird, like if you ever really talk to a vet, like hearing that is always weird to us.
Oh yeah.
We never feel it singularly like other people do. Like people who never served are like, I'm a real patriot. Where were you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. It's weird.
Where were you?
Yep. Well, listen,
you know,
I think that your video that you just put out, you really hit it on the head what we're talking about now, and I think it's one of the best videos that you've put out. So make sure you guys go check that out. If you guys haven't, everybody that's watching, you can go to Emmett's YouTube page. It's his most recent video, or you can just look on my community page. There's a post that'll take you there. Absolutely amazing. So
I want to do a cheap plug for no money whatsoever. Okay, you go ahead and plug first, Jesse.
Okay, my plug is I just got this today, the Guinness World Records of 2017 book, right? And the guy sends it to me and goes, look, there's a comic book section on this 2017 blockbuster book. And I go, okay, cool. I'll see what the records are. So he actually he put a little note where to open it up. And I didn't realize that I'm actually in this book for breaking 2 Guinness Book of World Records.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Killer.
So they picked what we had picked, or the record we had broken. They felt it was important enough to put in the Guinness World Records. Folks, if you want to do something, you want to achieve something, don't take no for an answer. Don't take failure for an answer. You will achieve it.
Amen.
Hell yeah.
Dennis?
All right, my cheap plug is for, and if you can get me to there, Wild Bill's Beverage Company. Okay. Actually, Emmett, did you see these guys at Baltimore?
I didn't. They're usually at every convention. They probably
They're
were
at every convention. So I want to plug this. I don't make a single dollar off of them. They showed up at my little local show, 3,000, 4,000 person show. And I'm like, holy shit, Wild Bill's here. I went home and I pulled out like 7 different Wild Bill cups. And for $5, when you buy the cup for like $20 at a convention, you get free refills.
Oh, yeah.
The weekend. And then when you bring the cup to a convention that they're also at, they charge you $5 for a wristband to put on your cup, and it's free refills every convention for $5. And it's the best damn root beer, cream soda, everything.
I agree. All right.
And I don't make a single dollar. I just think these guys are fucking geniuses, and I just want to shout them out.
Hold on, Emmett, before you go, you kept on playing with that shirt. I thought you were wearing a skirt, just so you know. Now I'm fine. Okay, woo!
It's got the right color. So this is a character named Mason, and he actually is his first time in Baltimore. I gotta put it over my face. There we go.
There you go.
All
Go
right.
down a little.
So
Put it on your chest. Put it on your chest.
There you go.
There you go.
This was his first time in Baltimore. He's a local boy. His name is Lewis Peterson. He's another guy that makes like punk rock comics. They're like funny and sarcastic and satirical, and they're really great. So I just wanted to shout him out. He's been doing it on his own, like no Kickstarter, nothing, just printing out some books and having them. If you want to check it out, I'm actually going to do a video on my YouTube channel for it, and we're going to do a signing at my shop. And if you want to get a signed one, it'll be like $3.99, and we'll send you out some.
Dope. That's super cool. That's the type of stuff I love, man. I also want to let everybody know that go check out after this show. I can't send you over there automatically because I don't have it set up that way, and they don't have it set up that way. But I just dropped a link in the live chat to a great channel from a great artist that you probably heard of, the great Aaron Lopresti, who is live now with Dan Lawless and Billy Tucci. They are doing their launch stream for Wrath of God #3. So go over there and put in the live chat that Beyond Wednesday sent you, and go sub up to the great Lopez's channel, one of the best artists in comic books, and he's got 2 really great creators with him. So go say hello and let him know that Beyond Wednesday sent you, and we'll see you guys again.
No. Brian, tell everybody who we got next week.
Next week, ladies and gentlemen, we have an amazing guest that I'm very excited for, that I hope you guys come hang out with us for next week.
Even better than Emmett.
Yeah.
Well, we love Emmett too, and we love Billy Tucci too. But yeah, next week, Sarah Frazetta from Frazetta Girls, granddaughter of Frank Frazetta, will be joining us. I'm really looking forward to this. So that will be for episode 33 next Tuesday here on the Industry of Comics. And make sure you guys go hit that bookmark and hit the thumbs up, and hit the thumbs up for this one too. Go check out Haven for Heroes YouTube channel. If you're in the area, upstate New York, go check out Haven for Heroes comic book shop. And of course, you guys go give Nick Barrucci some love. Let him know that you're thinking about him and his loss of his best friend, one of his best friends, John Cassaday. That being said, thank you to everybody. You guys stick around for a minute. We'll see you guys soon. Adios.